I was reborn back in 1983, lying in a hospital bed, miscarrying Gu Zhan's child. It's not easy for my sister-in-law. Being a widow with a child, you should be more considerate. He handed me a cup of warm brown sugar water, steam still rising from it. In my past life, I endured everything in silence, only to be pushed off the building by his dear sister-in-law in the end. This time, I pulled out the 4-drip and slammed the divorce papers onto his military medal. Let's end this. Consider the child my way of repaying your family's debt. The thick, metallic taste of blood still lingered in my throat, while a chilling despair clung to every fiber of my consciousness like a stubborn parasite. The howling wind roared in my ears, accompanied by the sickening, bone-crunching thud of my body hitting the cold, hard concrete. A sharp, piercing scream cut through the chaos, violently yanking me back to the world of the living. My eyelids felt like lead as I struggled to pry them open just a slit. My vision was blurry, overwhelmed by a harsh, blinding white light. The overpowering stench of disinfectant invaded my nostrils, so strong it made me nauseous. Deep within, a violent, wrenching pain, as if my insides were being torn apart, savagely clawed at my nerves. It wasn't the cold, hard impact of a fall, it was a hospital delivery bed. Awake, a woman's voice, devoid of warmth, sounded above me. A masked nurse was adjusting the 4-drip with efficient, almost indifferent movements. The anesthesia's worn off, pain is normal, just bear with it. A miscarriage still requires postpartum care, don't take it lightly. She glanced at me with empty eyes, as if stating the most mundane fact. Miscarriage, ARG. Those 2 words seared into my heart like a red-hot iron. The pain surged with brutal clarity, merging with the memory of being pushed from a height in my past life. That bone-shattering, icy agony now churning violently within me. My stomach convulsed, and I twisted toward the chipped white enamel basin by the bed, retching dryly until only bitter, acidic bile came up. Just then, the pale green wooden door of the hospital room swung open quietly. A tall, straight-backed figure blocked the light from the doorway, bringing in a chill from outside. His dark green military uniform was impeccably pressed, and the battalion commander's insignia on his epaulette gleamed with a stern, metallic sheen under the fluorescent lights. It was Gu Zhan. He held a similarly chipped white enamel mug, from which steam rose, softening the sharp lines of his jaw. His footsteps were light as he approached the bed, placing the mug on the nightstand with a faint clink. Good, you're awake. His voice was deep, carrying a soldier's steadiness, yet tinged with a barely perceptible weariness. He leaned down as if to reach for my forehead. I instinctively flinched backward, my spine hitting the cold iron bed rail with a dull thud. The movement tugged at the wound below, sending a sharp pain that made me gasp, beads of cold sweat forming on my forehead. Gu Zhan's hand froze mid-air, his dark, sword-like brows furrowing almost imperceptibly. He withdrew his hand, his gaze sweeping over my pale, sweat-beaded face before settling on the steaming cup of brown sugar water. Have something warm, he said, picking up the enamel mug and offering it to me. His tone softened but carried an undeniable, almost commanding reassurance. Warm yourself up. The reddish-brown liquid sloshed inside the white enamel, giving off a cloyingly sweet smell. My gaze shifted past that nauseatingly sweet drink, locking firmly onto Gu Zhan's face. That face, handsome, resolute, had once been the light of my youth. But now, every sharp angle seemed to reflect the foolishness and blood-soaked tears of my past life. It was his repeated understanding, his ever-struggling widowed sister-in-law Lu Shouyun, that had ultimately pushed me into the abyss. In my past life, right on this very hospital bed, I endured heart-wrenching pain and the despair of losing my child as I drank that cup of sugary water he handed me. Then I listened as he spoke those solemn, weighty words. 1-1. Gu Zhan's voice rang out just as expected, low, patient in that way he always tried to reason with me. Each word felt like a poison-tipped ice needle, piercing straight into my already battered heart. I know you're hurting. I'm in pain too, after losing the baby, but Sister Shouyun, she's a widow with a child. It's only been a few months since Jianmin passed. She was just flustered today, lost her balance, and bumped into you. His voice trailed off, as if carefully weighing his words. His gaze bore into me with an unspoken pressure to consider the bigger picture. She's a woman raising a child all by herself. It's not easy. You should try to be more understanding. Don't make a scene. Alright, understanding. Make a scene. That memory of Lu Shouyun pushing me down the stairs in my past life, her face twisted with jealousy, Gu Zhan's unwavering belief in her tearful lies, and now, this cup of cloyingly sweet brown sugar water and his pity for the struggling Lu Shouyun. The last thread of sanity in my mind snapped instantly under the overwhelming hatred and icy despair, all pretense, all endurance, all the accumulated grievances and resentments from past lives ignited at this moment, blazing into an all-consuming inferno. Understanding. I jerked my head up, my voice rasping like sandpaper yet sharp as ice, piercing straight at Gu Zhan, Battalion Commander Gu. What exactly should I understand? That she accidentally caused me to lose my 3-month-old child? Or that being a widow with children gives her the right to steal my man and take over my home? My voice suddenly rose sharply, like a chipped blade scraping against the eerie silence of the hospital ward, producing a grating noise. The patient and family in the next bed held their breath in shock, and even the nurses stopped what they were doing, staring at me in astonishment. Gu Zhan's face darkened abruptly, as if frosted over. He clearly hadn't anticipated that I, usually docile and even somewhat timid, would suddenly erupt. Even less did he expect me to tear off that fig leaf so bluntly and sharply. His jaw tightened, his eyes instantly turning sharp and icy, carrying a soldier's authoritative pressure. Lin Wan, watch your language. What nonsense about stealing a man and taking over a home? How dare you spout such rubbish? Lu Xiuyun and I are completely innocent, completely innocent. I let out a broken laugh as if hearing the most absurd joke in the world, tears uncontrollably welling up and mixing with cold sweat, streaming down my face in a wretched mess. If Lu Xiuyun were truly innocent, she wouldn't be wandering around the living room in your shirt in the middle of the night. She wouldn't have deliberately knocked over the chicken soup I'd simmered all afternoon to scald herself, only to turn around and cry to you while clutching Gu Jianmen's portrait. She wouldn't have whispered in your ear every day during my pregnancy about how pitiful Jijun is without his father and how cruel I, this stepmother, am. I spat out the words in one breath, each syllable dripping with bloody accusations and the venom of a past life. The hospital room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, with only my ragged, heavy panting breaking the silence. Gu Zhan's face turned ashen, his eyes churning with shock, offended fury, and a trace of barely perceptible embarrassment. He took a sudden step forward, his tall frame radiating intense pressure, his voice thick with thunderous rage. Lin Wan, have you lost your mind? Shut your mouth. How dare you spew such wild accusations? Do you have any idea? I don't know, I snapped, cutting him off with a voice like poisoned steel, my gaze meeting his furious eyes without flinching. All I know is my child is gone, killed by that precious sister-in-law of yours you're always defending. And you, as his father, dare tell me to show her understanding. Gu Zhan, where is your heart? Did a dog eat it, or has it been dissolved by Lu Xiuyun's crocodile tears? You, Gu Zhan trembled with rage at my blunt address and piercing accusations, veins bulging at his temples. His hand shot up as if to silence my hysterics. The moment his palm rose, the last trace of warmth vanished from my eyes. Enough. Every second spent with this scum was an insult to life itself. All my fury, accusations, and bitterness collapsed into a void of icy silence under the weight of pure hatred. Without even glancing at him, my right hand flashed up, seizing the 4-tube on my left hand. Without hesitation, I dug my nails into my flesh and yanked with all my strength. Schlick, the needle tore out of the blue vein with a trail of tiny blood droplets. A distinct puncture mark appeared on my hand, from which crimson beads welled up, snaking down my pale wrist to stain the white sheets like a glaring blood-red blossom. The sharp pain shot through me, yet it was nothing compared to the agony tearing through my heart. Gu Zhan's pupils contracted sharply at my sudden move, his raised hand freezing mid-air. I gave him no time to react. With my left hand, I threw aside the thin, disinfectant-scented blanket covering me, and the icy air instantly enveloped my body clad only in a flimsy hospital gown. A searing pain, like a steel blade twisting in my lower abdomen, made my legs tremble so badly they could barely support me. Gritting my teeth, I tasted the metallic tang of blood on my tongue. Driven by overwhelming hatred, I forced myself off the cold metal bed. My feet hit the frigid terrazzo floor, a bone-chilling cold shooting straight up from my soles to the crown of my head. My body swayed uncontrollably. Lin Wan, what are you doing? Gu Zhan finally snapped out of it, growling as he reached out to steady me. Get away from me, I snarled, my voice hoarse and icy as I violently knocked his hand aside with such force that I staggered myself. My eyes were locked on the left breast pocket of his military uniform, where his treasured hero brand fountain pen was clipped. It was a gift from his old regiment commander after he distinguished himself. Without a moment's hesitation, I thrust out my blood-stained trembling right hand and lunged with all my might toward that pocket. Caught completely off guard by my sudden assault, Jean was powerless to stop me as I seized the cap of that fountain pen. His face instantly paled as he instinctively moved to shield himself. Too late. With a sharp tug and the faint sound of tearing fabric, I yanked the heavy Hero brand fountain pen right out of his pocket. Clutched in my other hand was a neatly folded, slightly worn piece of paper, the divorce petition I had painstakingly written by the dim kerosene lamp 2 nights ago. Enduring the dull ache in my abdomen, every single character on that page was soaked with the blood and tears of my past life. Jean felt a sudden chill on his chest. Glancing down at the torn slit in his military uniform pocket, he looked up in a mix of shock and fury. Lin Wan, have you lost your mind? Give me back that pen. I completely ignored his furious roar. My body ached to the point of near convulsion, the cold sweat soaking through the hospital gown on my back. I bit down hard on my lower lip, the metallic taste of blood flooding my mouth. Relying on that brief clarity brought by the blood's iron scent, I mustered every ounce of strength to stand firm. Then, under Jean's shocked fury and the stunned gaze from the neighboring hospital bed, I raised my blood-stained hand clutching the pen and divorce papers high. With the last vestiges of my strength, fueled by the bone-deep hatred from my past life and the icy resolve of this one, I slammed it hard against the star insignia on Jean's shoulder, the symbol of his battalion commander's honor. Crack, a sharp yet dull impact echoed through the deathly silent ward, the cold metal insignia dug painfully into my palm, the hard cap of the Hero pen, separated only by the thin divorce paper, struck the gleaming star with brutal force. Jean's tall frame staggered half a step backward from the sudden, powerful blow. All rage on his face froze into blank astonishment as he stared at me in disbelief, as if seeing this pale, frail woman for the first time. Gasping for breath, waves of agony from my lower abdomen made my vision blur, but I straightened my spine, though it trembled with pain, and met his shocked gaze with expressionless, ice-cold stillness. My lips quivered from blood loss and pain. Yet my voice emerged clear and measured, each word striking like an ice-forged nail. Jean, I want a divorce. Boom. I pressed the crumpled divorce papers, still stained with blood from my palm, hard against his cold epaulets as if trying to drive them into his very bones. This child, my gaze swept over my flat yet still aching abdomen, where a tiny life had once grown, now leaving only a cold void and bitter hatred. My voice suddenly sharpened with almost cruel intensity and mocking relief. Consider it my way of repaying your family's debt. As the last word left my lips, I snatched my hand back, clutching the cold Hero fountain pen so tightly my knuckles turned white. Without another glance at Jean's face, a twisted mask of shock, fury, and bewildered confusion, I turned and braced myself against the icy wall. Step by painful step, I dragged myself toward the hospital room door. My body screaming in agony but my resolve ironclad. The thin hospital gown clung to my sweat-drenched back, outlining my sharp shoulder blades like the broken wings of a butterfly. Behind me, dead silence reigned, broken only by my ragged, suppressed breaths and the soft shuffle of slippers against the floor. Jean stood frozen, the torn fabric of his military uniform pocket dangling limply. The star insignia on his epaulette seemed to bear the faint imprint of paper and a stark, bloody smudge. His eyes dropped to the crumpled document forcibly wedged into the seam of that epaulette, the words "divorce petition" blazing up at him like a red-hot brand. He jerked his head up, his gaze locking onto the frail figure shuffling painfully toward the door. A wave of furious indignation, and something else, something raw and panicked, swept through him. How dare she be this final? This had to be rage talking. A hysterical outburst after losing their child, Lin Wan. He roared, like an enraged lion, in one swift stride. His large hand closed around my arm with brutal, unyielding force, a vice clamping down on my slender limb, threatening to shatter bone. That familiar, domineering strength, the same that always demanded compliance, wrenched me backward. Enough of this nonsense. His voice, thick with suppressed fury, exploded next to my ear. His hot breath hit my neck, heavy with the scent of gunpowder and tobacco. Get back to bed, divorce. Do you even hear the madness you're spewing? The searing pain in my arm twisted together with the cramping in my lower abdomen, and my vision swam black at the edges. Memories of all those times he'd soothed me, all those demands to be understanding, rose like a tidal wave of humiliation, culminating in that endless, freezing cold of my fall. Hate, volcanic, all-consuming hate erupted, drowning every physical agony in its path. Let go. the words hissed through my clenched teeth. My voice hoarse and icy, carrying the ferocity of a dying beast. I didn't look back, just struggled violently, throwing all my strength into breaking free from his grip. Gu Zhan, you son of a bitch, let her go. A thunderous roar exploded from the hospital room doorway. A man built like a fortress, wearing a faded work uniform, charged in like an enraged bull, his eyes bloodshot. It was Lin Daong, my own brother. He'd just gotten off the night shift at the factory and rushed over after a neighbor's frantic call, only to be met with this gut-wrenching sight the moment he entered: his sister, who had just lost her child, being gripped like a helpless chick by that high and mighty battalion commander brother-in-law of his, her face deathly pale and swaying unsteadily. Lin Daong's roar was like a bolt from the blue, making the entire ward reverberate, without wasting a single word. He closed the distance in 2 strides, his large, fan-like hand whistling through the air as he threw a furious punch straight at the arm Gu Zhan was using to restrain me. His move was swift and brutal, fueled by the raw, desperate protectiveness unique to a blue-collar worker defending his own. Thud, the dull sound of impact echoed. Gu Zhan, a soldier, reacted with lightning speed. The instant Lin Daong's fist connected, he instinctively released his grip on me, blocking and deflecting most of the force with a swift arm movement. But Lin Daong's rage-fueled blow was too powerful. Even with the hasty block, the impact sent a numbing shock through Gu Zhan's arm, making his tall frame stagger backward. Seizing that split-second opportunity, I slipped free like a slick fish, breaking the last of my restraints before my body went completely limp, losing all balance as I crumpled backward. Wan. Lin Daong moved with lightning reflexes, not bothering with Gu Zhan any longer as he lunged forward and caught me firmly against his broad, solid chest and strong arms. The familiar scent of machine oil and sweat enveloped me. It was the smell of my big brother. In my past life, when Lu Shouyun had driven me to the brink, it was Big Brother who secretly slipped me the food coupons and a few dollars he'd saved up, telling me to run, but I never made it out. What happened to Big Brother after that? I never found out. An overwhelming wave of sorrow and the grievance of having narrowly escaped death surged up, stinging my nose and blurring my vision. I clutched desperately at the rough fabric of my brother's work shirt, as if grabbing onto my last lifeline, a choked, broken sob escaping my throat. Don't be afraid, I'm here now. Lin Daong held me close, feeling the violent tremors racking his sister's frail body and hearing her stifled sobs. His heart felt like it was shattering. He jerked his head up, his bloodshot eyes burning like red-hot daggers as they fixed fiercely on Gu Zhan, who stood a few steps away with a face like thunder. His voice was hoarse and distorted with rage. Gu, are you even human? My sister just went through hell. She lost the baby. Instead of protecting her, you're here laying hands on her. Is that what those medals of yours are for? Bullying the women in your own home? Gu Zhan's face was dark enough to drip water. He rubbed his arm, sore from where Lin Daong had struck him, the star insignia on his epaulets gleaming coldly under the light. He looked at his wife, trembling in Lin Daong's arms yet with eyes like ice, then at this brother-in-law who was guarding his sister like an enraged lion. A suffocating sense of frustration and pent-up fury churned violently in his chest. I didn't lay a hand on her. Gu Zhan's voice was tight, carrying a soldier's sternness and a trace of aggrieved irritation. She pulled out her fore and tried to run. Just what? Lin Daong completely ignored his explanations, standing before me like an impenetrable wall, his eyes blazing with fury. Just holding her back. Bullshit. Battalion Commander Gu, look at my sister's wrist, look at the blood on her hand, look at her pale face. He grew angrier with each word, his chest heaving violently. What did my sister marry you for? For your high rank, for your generous allowance. She's been slaving day and night taking care of your household, serving your poor, unfortunate widowed sister-in-law. Now she's lost the baby, nearly lost her life, and you're here telling her to be considerate of others. Considerate my ass. Gu Zhan, has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Lin Daong's roars came like rapid gunfire, each word striking Gu Zhan's face and piercing the hearts of everyone in the ward. The patients and their families in neighboring beds looked at Gu Zhan with completely changed expressions, their eyes filled with contempt. Gu Zhan's face flushed and paled alternately under the verbal assault, the veins at his temples throbbing visibly. He clenched his fists, his military pride making it unbearable to endure such public accusation, especially the charge of mistreating his wife. He wanted to refute, to say he had never mistreated Lin Wan. That he had given her a comfortable life. He just hoped for family harmony, hoped she could understand Sister Shoyun's difficulties. But when his gaze met the icy, hollow eyes filled with intense hatred and alienation in Lin Dayoung's arms, my eyes, all his words of defense stuck in his throat. Those eyes were like two bottomless, freezing pools, swirling with emotions completely foreign to him, sending an inexplicable chill shooting through his heart. Just then, a deliberately hushed, tearful female voice sounded at the ward doorway, carrying just the right amount of fragility and alarm. Jeanzi, Wanmei, what's going on here? I heard Wanmei woke up, so I specially made some millet porridge and brought it over. It's Lu Shoyun. She was wearing a slightly worn floral-patterned cotton jacket, her hair neatly combed, with just the right amount of worry and pallor on her face, clutching an aluminum lunchbox. She stood timidly at the doorway, her eyes swept across the tense atmosphere in the hospital room before finally settling on Gu Zhan. Her eyes instantly reddened as she spoke in a tearful voice. Jeanzi, are you alright? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have. If I hadn't lost my balance this morning, none of this would have happened, sis, Gu Zhan exclaimed. As if he had found his anchor or was desperate to escape the awkward situation, he immediately cut off Lu Shoyun's self-blame. His voice softening unconsciously, it's not your fault, it was an accident. He took a step forward as if to take the lunchbox from her hands. Heartless. I, who had been silently curled up in my elder brother's embrace, suddenly lifted my head. My voice was soft, even somewhat weak, yet it pierced through the false warmth in the hospital room like an ice-cold needle. Instantly, all eyes focused on me. I stared at Lu Shoyun's face, which was full of innocence and self-reproach. And at the fleeting glint of triumph and calculation deep in her eyes. In my past life, it was this very face, always fragile and helpless in front of Gu Zhan, yet venomous as a serpent when facing me. It was she who pushed me off the rooftop with her own hands. A cold hatred, like a poisonous vine, instantly coiled around my heart, choking me until I could barely breathe. Lu Shoyun, I said, looking at her as the corner of my mouth slowly curled into an icy smile. There was not a trace of warmth in that expression, only bone-chilling mockery and cold insight. Behind the portrait frame of your late husband, Gu Jianmin, that bundle of grain coupons tied with a red string, along with the 5 yuan, that was the allowance Gu Zhan sent last month for me to recuperate, wasn't it? My words were not loud, but they struck Lu Shoyun like a thunderbolt out of the blue. The worry and pallor on her face vanished in an instant, replaced by an ashen, deathly white. Her hand, holding the lunchbox, trembled violently. The aluminum container clattered to the ground, spilling scalding millet porridge that splashed onto her feet, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She shrieked, "You're lying, you're slandering me. I didn't do it, Jean, she's framing me." Her reaction was far too intense and abnormal, instantly betraying her guilty conscience. Gu Zhan's outstretched hand froze midair as he reached for the lunchbox. He whipped his head around, staring in shock at Lu Shoyun's hysterical scream, then turned to me with disbelief. Ration coupons, allowances, the money and coupons he sent home every month. Lin Wan had never once complained about them being insufficient. Could it be? An utterly absurd and chilling thought involuntarily surfaced in his mind. Am I making baseless accusations? Why don't we just search and find out? I leaned against my brother's chest, my voice weak but my gaze sharp as a dagger, fixed on Lu Shoyun's fear-contorted face. At the very bottom of the con cabinet in your bedroom, in that biscuit tin with the red paper pasted on it, besides the ration coupons, there's also a Plum Blossom brand watch. That was my mother's dowry gift to me. Lu Shoyun, dare you let someone go and check? Lu Shoyun seemed to have all the strength drained from her body. Her legs gave way, and she collapsed into the spilled porridge on the floor, trembling uncontrollably like a sieve. Her lips quivered, unable to form a single word. Her terrified, desperate eyes completely gave her away. With ironclad evidence laid bare, the hospital room fell into a dead silence, broken only by Lu Shoyun's ragged, despairing breaths. Gu Zhan stood frozen like a petrified statue, rooted to the spot. He looked at the pale, crumpled figure of Lu Shoyun on the ground, then at his wife in her brother's arms, weak and cold-eyed, yet seeming to see right through everything. The epaulets on his chest felt cold and hard. The divorce report he unconsciously clutched in his hand dug into his palm with its sharp edges. All the understanding, all the hardships, at this moment, were torn apart, bleeding and raw, revealing the most vile and ugly scheming beneath. Lin Dayoung held me tighter, glaring at the collapsed Lu Shoyun and the rigid Gu Zhan before letting out a heavy, contemptuous snarl through gritted teeth. "Pa, what a disgusting bunch." Without another glance at them, he carefully supported me as if guarding a fragile treasure, his voice softening immensely. "Wan, Big Brother will take you away, we're not staying in this damned place any longer." I nodded weakly, burying my face in my elder brother's shoulder that smelled of engine oil, and closed my eyes in exhaustion. My body ached with numbness, yet my heart was gripped by a chilling calm. Gujan stood rooted to the spot, watching helplessly as Lin Daong half-supported, half-carried me, step by step, trudging with difficulty yet unwavering determination out of the hospital ward. That frail silhouette vanished into the light and shadow at the doorway, like a resolute dividing line. He looked down and opened his palm, revealing the crumpled divorce report stained with a dull red, and a cold, metallic star insignia fastener that still held the lingering warmth from her fingertips. That fierce, desperate slap had actually knocked it loose, the icy metal pressed against his palm with a bone-chilling cold. Outside the window, it was late autumn of 1983, the lead gray sky hanging heavily over the city. Lin Daong pedaled his clattering bicycle, the kind that rattled everywhere except the bell, with me perched carefully on the back, cushioned by the thick, sweat-stained cotton jacket he'd stubbornly taken off. We bumped along the potholed factory road, bypassing the nauseating military family compound that reeked of Lu Shoyun's presence, heading straight instead for the dilapidated residential area behind the cotton mill. This was where Lin Daong lived, a mere 10-square-meter red brick house, its walls blackened by coal smoke, with stacks of honeycomb briquettes and chopped firewood piled by the door. "Wan, we're home, watch your step." Lin Daong parked the car and carefully, almost clumsily, lifted me from the back seat as if I were a fragile porcelain doll. The room was small but tidy, furnished with an old wooden bed, a faded square table, and 2 stools. The air carried a faint scent of coal smoke and the distinct smell of a man living alone, a bit pungent, yet oddly comforting. "Brother, I'm staying here, what about sister-in-law?" I leaned against the headboard, wrapped in the patched but clean old quilt my brother had dug out, my voice weak. "Don't mention her." Lin Daong was squatting by the stove, poking at the fire, and didn't turn around. His tone was gruff. "I divorced that gold digger long ago, it's just me in this house now. Peace and quiet, you focus on resting here and getting better, that's what matters." The fire flared up under his prodding, orange flames dancing and chasing away the late autumn chill. He didn't press about what happened at the hospital, nor did he utter a word about Gu Zhan or Lu Shoyun. He just quietly stoked the stove, then rummaged through cabinets to find half a bag of dried noodles, 2 eggs, and a small, hardened piece of lard stored in a tin can. "Just make do with this for now. I'll go to the grocery store tomorrow to see if I can get some meat." He placed a bowl of clear noodle soup before me, with a poached egg floating in it and droplets of oil shimmering on the surface. His rough fingers fidgeted nervously against his faded work pants, worn pale from washing. The steam rising from the noodles made my eyes sting. In my past life, when Gu Zhan had demanded that I'd be understanding of Lu Shoyun and I ended up huddled by the cold stove nibbling on stale buns, had my older brother been like this too, somewhere in a corner, worrying about his hopeless little sister? "Brother." My throat tightened painfully. "Eat," Lin Daong insisted, thrusting the chopsticks into my hand. "Don't overthink it, if the sky falls, I'll be here to hold it up for you." Days drifted by slowly and painfully amid the crackle of the stove fire and the warmth of the noodle soup. While the physical wounds were gradually healing, the gaping hole torn open in my heart kept letting in an icy wind. Day and night. A few days later, an unexpected visitor knocked on the door. It was Gu Zhan's messenger, Xiao Zhang. The young man wore an expression of awkwardness and sympathy, holding a craft paper document folder in his hand. "Sis, Comrade Lin Wan," he corrected himself quickly, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The battalion commander, Commander Gu, asked me to deliver this. He said he'd like you to review it." Lin Wan leaned against the headboard, her face still pale but her gaze calm as still water. She motioned for her elder brother to take the folder. Inside was the very divorce petition she had slapped onto Gu Zhan's epaulette, only now, beneath the document, appeared a line of forceful yet hesitantly penned characters. "Comrade Lin Wan, petition received. This matter carries significant consequences and should not be decided in haste. I urge you to reflect calmly and prioritize your health. We will discuss this further upon your recovery, ____ Gu Zhan." Negotiate. Lin Wan's lips curled into a cold, mocking smile. Did he really think she was still the same Lin Wan from their past life, someone he could push around and placate with empty words of understanding? The condescending tone in his message was nothing but a stalling tactic, certain she would eventually yield and come crawling back. He didn't even mention Lu Shoyun, as if that public exposure in the hospital had been nothing but a bad dream. Brother. Lin Wan's voice was soft but carried an unshakable resolve. Get me some paper and a pen. Lin Daong immediately fetched a crumpled sheet of notebook paper and a short pencil. Propping herself up slightly, Lin Wan began to write, the lead scratching against the paper with a soft rustle. She didn't write a single extra word, just two heavy, decisive lines under Gu Zhan's message. Then, beside it, with every ounce of her strength, she scrawled two icy, final words, divorce. Now, she folded the paper neatly, tucked it back into the file, and handed it to Xiao Zhang. Please return this exactly as it is. Xiao Zhang glanced at the two words etched deeply into the paper, his throat tightening. In the end, he said nothing, saluted, turned, and left. Military base, Gu Zhan's office. Gu Zhan stared at the paper in the file folder. The two thick, sharp characters, divorce, immediately burned into his eyes like red-hot awls. A nameless fury mixed with indescribable irritation shot straight to his head. Frustrated, he tore open his collar and paced around the cramped office. How dare she? How could she become so unreasonable? He was equally heartbroken about losing the child. Sister Shoyun did wrong by stealing, but she's already fallen ill from fright and admitted her mistake. Couldn't she just give her a chance to reform, out of respect for a martyr's family, or for his own reputation? When did Lin Wan become so cold-blooded and calculating? Divorce. How would she survive in this world, a woman who just had a miscarriage, carrying the stigma of divorce? She's clearly not thinking straight. Battalion commander, Xiao Zhang spoke cautiously. Comrade Lin Wan looks very weak, but her attitude is extremely firm. Gu Zhan spun around sharply, his gaze piercing. Firm? She's confused. Someone's been poisoning her mind. The angry face of Lin Daong flashed through his thoughts. It must be that hothead stirring up trouble behind his back. He waved his hand irritably. Let's set this aside for now. We'll talk when she's recovered and calmed down. He shoved the report containing Lin Wan's icy response into the bottom drawer, frustration evident in his movements. Deep down, he still couldn't believe, or refused to believe, that the Lin Wan who once had eyes only for him could be so resolute. Military family compound. Lu Shoyun was indeed sick. Ever since being publicly exposed in the hospital room that day, she had been holed up at home, her face sallow, her eyes panicked, often clutching Gu Jianmen's portrait and weeping. Gu Zhan was furious with her, but seeing her like this and remembering his fallen comrade Gu Jianmen, his anger lodged in his chest and turned into a heavy sigh. He sternly reprimanded her, ordering her to return all the stolen items and withholding several months of her living allowance. Lu Shoyun tearfully agreed, putting on a show of deep remorse. However, when Gu Zhan once again tossed Lin Wan's demand for an immediate divorce onto the table in frustration, and Lu Shoyun accidentally caught a glimpse of it while coming in to pour water, a viper-like glint flashed beneath her lowered eyelids. The opportunity had arrived. She knew Gu Zhan all too well. This man valued loyalty, but he valued face even more, especially the honor of a soldier and the stability of his family. Lin Wan was now like a stubborn, unyielding rock, completely unreasonable and even dragging Lu Shoyun's own disgrace into it. Gu Zhan was dragging his feet on the divorce, firstly because he thought Lin Wan couldn't survive without him, secondly because he feared the scandal would cause a stir and reflect poorly on him, and thirdly, perhaps there was also a sliver of unacknowledged resentment at being defied and a loss of control. But the fire of bad influence was one that she, Lu Shoyun, could stoke into an inferno. A few days later, a rumor, like a venomous insect with wings, began to spread silently through the military family compound. The core of the rumor was utterly vicious. Lin Wan had long had a lover at the cotton mill, a widowed technician. She had deliberately gotten rid of the baby this time just to get a divorce and run off with her illicit lover. Battalion Commander Gu was being cuckolded. The rumor was crafted with chilling plausibility. Lin Wan did indeed work at the cotton mill. There truly was a single technician employed there. Her sudden, fierce determination to divorce seemed inherently suspicious through a traditional lens. In no time, family members unaware of the truth gazed at Gu Zhan with pity, whispering among themselves in hushed tones. The political commissar's office. Gu Zhan was summoned. The commissar, surnamed Li, was a stern old revolutionary. He rapped his knuckles on the desk, his tone grave. Comrade Goujon, personal family matters are, in principle, not the organization's concern, but the fallout is severe. This situation with your wife, Comrade Lin Wan, and then there's the issue of that Lu Shouyun. What in the world is going on? The gossip circulating outside is vile. They're saying all sorts of things. This is doing tremendous damage, both to your personal reputation and to the honor of the military. Goujon's face turned ashen, his fists clenched audibly. He had, of course, heard the filthy rumors himself. At first, he was consumed by rage, itching to drag the slanderers out and have them shot, but after the fury subsided, a darker thought coiled around him like a venomous vine. Could there be some hidden truth behind Lin Wan's desperate, frantic rush to divorce? That technician, once planted, the seed of doubt, nourished by the poisonous gossip, instantly grew into a twisted, toxic tree. The last vestiges of his hesitation and complicated feelings toward Lin Wan, feelings born from a sense of guilt, were instantly incinerated by overwhelming fury and the shame of his masculine pride being trampled, especially when the commissar sternly pointed out that issues of personal conduct could directly impact promotion evaluations. The last thread of Goujon's rationality snapped completely. Commissar, Goujon shot to his feet, his chest heaving violently, his voice hoarse with the anguish of betrayal and finality. I have failed to manage my household properly. I've brought shame upon the organization. I request the organization's approval for Lin Wan and me to divorce. As for Lu Shouyun, her theft is a proven fact. I will deal with her severely and have her moved out of the military family compound. Please believe in my party loyalty. My personal affairs will never interfere with my duties. In that moment, considerations for his future, rage over the betrayal, the crushing weight of malicious rumors, and the last shred of affection for the now cold and resolute Lin Wan were all extinguished, overwhelming everything else. He chose to cut the Gordian knot, to preserve his military honor and career prospects. The truth, before the tide of malice and immense pressure, it no longer mattered. Subconsciously, he even needed to believe the rumors to make his decision to agree to the divorce seem less humiliating and passive. The cotton mill residential compound. When Goujon himself appeared in his crisp military uniform, his face as dark as a stormy sky, holding the officially stamped and approved divorce papers and a thin property settlement agreement, Lin Wan showed no surprise. She didn't even let him inside. Meeting him at the door, the late autumn wind tousled the strands of hair on her forehead, making her still pale face appear even more aloof. Calmly, she took the documents, her eyes scanning the bright red official seal and Goujon's flamboyant, forceful signature that seemed driven by a venting fury. Lin Wan, Goujon's voice was dry and tight, his gaze complex as he looked at her, lingering anger, scrutiny, and perhaps a trace of pain so faint even he refused to acknowledge it. You, take care of yourself. He wanted to ask about that technician, but in the end, his military pride and disdain for sordid topics sealed his lips. He had convinced himself of her impurity, which made his decision to agree to the divorce seem far more justified. Lin Wan lifted her gaze to meet his, her eyes clear and icy like a bottomless cold pool. They vividly reflected Goujon's forced anger and concealed disarray, as well as the figure lurking behind him at the corner of the courtyard wall, Lu Shouyun, peering out with a smug, triumphant expression. So that's how it is. The corner of Lin Wan's mouth curled upward ever so slightly. It wasn't a smile, but a cold, knowing arc filled with endless mockery and final liberation. She didn't spare Goujon another glance, nor did she acknowledge his meaningless parting words. Take care. Right in front of him, she meticulously folded the divorce papers and tucked them into her inner pocket, the cold document pressed against her chest like a block of ice finally melting. Then she turned, her slender yet upright figure striding resolutely through the simple, solid door of her home, from which warm, golden firelight glowed. Thud, a soft click, and the door closed. Outside, the leaden gray of late autumn in 1983 framed Goujon's rigid figure in the cold wind, shut out in another world by that door, while in the corner, Lu Shouyun's face betrayed an unmistakable, smug and venomous grin. Inside, the fire crackled in the hearth. Lin Wan leaned against the door and slowly slid down to the floor. She closed her eyes, and two streams of scalding tears finally broke through the icy dam, pouring down in a torrent. washing away the bloodstains of her past life and the humiliation of this one. The flimsy piece of paper in her hand now felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. The shackles shattered, the debt was paid. Lin Wan's true rebirth began at this very moment. The wind howled outside the window, as if singing a dirge for the past that had completely died, while also playing the overture for a soul reborn from the ashes. By day, Lin Dayon toiled away sweating in the machine repair shop, and after work, he'd dive straight into the kitchen, clumsily figuring out how to turn limited grain and oil ration coupons into something nutritious. He somehow got hold of a small packet of brown sugar and without fail made me a bowl every single day. He asked his co-workers to trade for eggs on the black market a few times, but never ate a single one himself. Burying them all at the bottom of my bowl, once I could move a little, I started tidying up the small room. At the very bottom of a dusty, old wooden crate stuffed with old newspapers and junk, I dug out a small, heavy bundle wrapped in blue cloth. Unwrapping it revealed several old books with yellowed pages and curled edges. On top was the self-study series for mathematics, physics, and chemistry, high school edition. Underneath was a thin copy of the Barefoot Doctor Manual, and a stack of neatly cut, hemp thread-bound white paper, its edges already yellowed and brittle. My fingertips brushed over the familiar rough paper, and my heart felt gripped by an icy hand. In my past life, during countless late nights and during Lu Shouyin's cruelty and Gu Zhan's neglect. In that cold room in the military family compound that belonged to the Captain Gu's wife, but felt more like a servant's quarters, these secretly hidden old books and notes were my only solace and respite. How I had longed to stand on my own 2 feet like those women doctors in white coats from the books, relying on my own skills. But that faint spark was ultimately snuffed out by the identity and responsibilities of being Mrs. Gu, by Lu Shouyin's endless, harassment troublemaking, and by Gu Zhan's so-called considerate words of just stay home and relax. Between the pages was tucked an old photo the size of a palm. The girl in the photo wore a faded blue cloth jacket, with 2 dark black braids, standing under the old locust tree at County First High School, her smile shy yet bright, her eyes brimming with hope for the future. That was 17-year-old Lin Wan, who had just received her high school acceptance letter. On the back of the photo, written in pen, were 2 lines of delicate yet forceful small characters. Knowledge changes fate. Lin Wan, you must break free. Tears surged without warning, falling like heavy raindrops onto the yellowed photograph, spreading dark water stains. Break free, the path I failed to take in my past life. This time, even if I have to crawl, I will claw my way out. I pressed the photo tightly against my chest. The cold tears trickled into the corner of my mouth, bitter and astringent. Yet they felt like the final surge of strength injected into parched land. Brother, I said that evening, as Lin Dayon was eating steamed corn bread with pickles, pointing at the old books on the table. My voice was calm yet carried undeniable resolve. Help me find these books, I want to read them. Lin Dayon froze for a moment, his eyes shifting between the tattered books and my pale but determined face. A complex light flickered in his clouded eyes. Without asking why, he nodded firmly, stuffing the last bite of bread into his mouth. All right, I'll polish the desk nice and bright for you tomorrow. The difficulty of reviewing far exceeded my expectations. My body hadn't fully recovered yet, and sitting for long periods caused a dull ache in my lower abdomen. The Cotton Mills residential area had poor conditions with unstable voltage, causing the dim yellow light bulb to flicker constantly. In the harsh winter, the only source of heat in the room was a coal stove. Sitting at the desk studying, my hands and feet would go numb from the cold, forcing me to rest a hot water bottle on my knees for warmth. My knowledge had become frighteningly rusty. High school algebra formulas, chemical equations, physics theorems. After more than a decade of life's hardships in my previous existence, they had all blurred into chaotic shadows. Opening the textbooks, those once familiar symbols and terms now seemed alien and impenetrable, but I had no way back. The firelight from the stove illuminated the open books and my focused profile. The pencil scratched across rough draft paper as I worked through calculations repeatedly, only to start over again and again. When I hit a wall, I'd furrow my brow and press my lips until they turned pale. Often working late into the night, when exhaustion overwhelmed me, I'd splash cold water on my face or pinch my own thigh to stay awake. Lin Dayon didn't understand these academic matters, but he supported me quietly in his own way. He asked someone to borrow old reference books from the factory library for me. He unraveled the work gloves issued by the factory and knitted me a pair of fingerless wool gloves. He saved his cigarette money to occasionally trade for a small packet of white sugar on the black market, which he'd mix into water for me to drink, claiming it would nourish my brain. Time slipped quietly from winter to spring to the sound of scratching pencils and the howling north wind outside the window. The scorching July heat arrived, and so did the day of the National College entrance exams. The exam was held at City No. 1 High School. Lin Daong had taken the day off specially, waking up before dawn to pedal me there on his worn-out bicycle, traveling over 10 miles. He wore his best faded blue work clothes. Standing like a silent mountain under the sweltering shade outside the exam hall, when the final bell rang, I walked out with the crowd, the glaring sunlight almost blinding. Lin Daong rushed over immediately, his sweaty, sun-darkened face full of tension. Wan, how was it? Are you tired? Did you do all right? Looking at the sweat-soaked wrinkles on his forehead and the pure, unadulterated concern and anxiety in his eyes, my tightly wound nerves suddenly relaxed. An overwhelming weariness and an indescribable ache washed over me. I shook my head gently, my voice hoarse from disuse and tinged with a barely noticeable sob. Brother, I did my best. All that remained was a long and agonizing wait. One day in early August, the incessant chirping of cicadas frayed my nerves. I was sitting on a small stool by the door, reading my dog-eared copy of the Barefoot Doctor's Manual in the daylight, when Lin Daong burst in like a gust of wind, drenched in sweat. He clutched a pale yellow paper tightly in his hand. His face was contorted with overwhelming excitement, and his voice cracked and trembled uncontrollably. Wan, the letter, it's here, stamped with a big red seal, from the capital. It's a letter from the capital. My heart skipped a beat, then began pounding so violently it ached in my chest. I shot to my feet, and the manual fell to the ground with a thud. Lin Daong rushed up to me, thrusting the letter into my hands, his thick, trembling finger pointed at the crimson seal in the lower right corner of the envelope. Look, Capital Medical University, School of Clinical Medicine, it's the acceptance letter. Wan, my dear sister, you got in, you made it. The pale yellow envelope felt heavy and substantial. Emblazoned on it were the solemn university emblem and the bold, powerful characters spelling Capital Medical University. The bright red words admission notice and the official seal in the corner burned like a flame against my fingertips, which trembled so violently I could barely hold the thin envelope. I took a deep breath and, mustering all my strength, tore open the seal and pulled out the notice inside, which bore the same crimson university emblem and lettering. Dear Lin Wan, after review and approval, you have been admitted to our School of Clinical Medicine. The words that followed blurred and wavered before my eyes. An overwhelming, indescribable heat surged to my head, instantly drowning all my senses. In my ears echoed Lin Daong's ecstatic, incoherent shouts, and the deafening thrum of my own heartbeat. Everything around me began to spin. The sunlight grew unbearably bright. Memories flashed and collided like shattered fragments before me. The howling wind when I was pushed down the stairs in my past life. The brown sugar water Gu Zhan brought me in the hospital, Lu Shouyun's hypocritical tears, the rough palm of my eldest brother handing me something, the sound of my frozen fingers scratching across draft paper on bitterly cold winter nights. Brother, I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but my throat felt blocked by a searing hot iron. No sound came out. The icy pillar of hatred and resentment that had sustained me for an entire year crumbled completely in that instant. Everything went black before my eyes. The world spun into chaos. Wan. In the final moment before losing consciousness, there was Lin Daong's panicked cry, and his firm, warm embrace that carried the scent of sweat and engine oil. Provincial capital, military district auditorium. The brilliantly lit auditorium glowed as bright as daylight. A massive red banner hung above the stage, warmly celebrating the successful conclusion of the XX Military District Summer Competition and Commendation Ceremony. Below, rows of officers in crisp uniforms adorned with various ranks sat with solemn yet proud expressions. Gu Zhan occupied a center-front seat, the stars on his epaulets gleaming under the lights. As the outstanding battalion commander of the armored unit in the competition, he had just received a third-class merit medal and certificate from the commanding officer. Thunderous applause erupted as camera flashes went off. He rose and delivered a crisp military salute to the assembly, his posture ramrod straight like a pine tree, his face bearing the characteristically restrained yet profound pride of a soldier. As the ceremony drew to a close, the atmosphere relaxed. An officer from the military district's propaganda department, carrying a stack of freshly delivered newspapers, cheerfully distributed them to the front row leaders, commanders. Political Commissar, the provincial paper just arrived. Front page headlines bring great news for our province. The senior political commissar chuckled as he took the newspaper and unfolded it. His eyes habitually scanned the eye-catching headline on the front page, and his smile stiffened slightly before transforming into undisguised astonishment and admiration. Well, I'll be. This year's provincial science top scorer in the college entrance exam has been announced, and it's a young woman. Her total score is this high. Impressive, truly impressive, and she's going to Capital Medical University, a future angel in white. The senior political commissar's voice boomed with genuine praise. His words immediately caught the attention of several other senior officers nearby, who gathered around to take a look. Really, let me see, Lin Wan, that name sounds familiar, a deputy commander said, adjusting his glasses. Lin Wan, Zhaomingda. The regimental political commissar sitting next to Gu Zhan instinctively repeated the name. He suddenly seemed to recall something, his expression turning peculiar as he quickly glanced at Gu Zhan beside him. Gu Zhan was still basking in the joy of his recent achievement and the relief of the meeting's imminent conclusion when the name Lin Wan struck him like an invisible fist clenching his heart. Impossible. It must be someone with the same name. How could she, a housewife who never finished middle school, possibly? He forced himself to maintain a calm facade, yet his gaze involuntarily darted with barely concealed urgency toward the old political commissar's newspaper. On the front page of the provincial daily, a grainy black and white photo dominated the layout. The girl in the picture wore a faded floral blouse, her hair tied in a simple ponytail. Her face was lean but sharply defined, her eyes meeting the lens with tranquil composure. A faint, almost ethereal smile gracing her lips as if transcending time itself. Below the photo, a bold, black headline screamed, "From humble roots to brilliance, provincial science top scorer Lin Wan gains admission to Capital Medical University with outstanding results." Subheading, Boom, a cotton mill worker rises from adversity, penning a new chapter of her destiny. Lin Wan, it really is her. Gu Zhan's blood seemed to freeze in an instant, the joy of his achievements. The glory of the ceremony, shattered like fragile glass under this sudden blow. He stared fixedly at the black and white photograph, at those calm, almost unfamiliar eyes. The face held the contours he remembered, yet felt utterly alien. Gone was the gentleness and timidity of his memory, replaced only by a rock-solid resilience and an icy detachment. Cotton mill worker, rising from adversity, top science student, Capital Medical University. Every word struck his consciousness like a sledgehammer. That Lin Wan, the one he'd told to be considerate of others, the one he believed couldn't survive without him, that Lin Wan whom he'd allowed Lu Xiaoyun to humiliate repeatedly, who'd finally resolutely demanded a divorce from her sickbed. A wave of profound absurdity and indescribable panic washed over him like an icy tide, drowning him instantly. He felt his breath catch in his throat. The chatter and applause of the senior officers around him seemed to come through thick frosted glass, distant and muffled. Only the calm face in the newspaper and those cold, printed words remained vividly imprinted on his retinas, burning into his nerves. The awards ceremony concluded amidst stirring military music. Officers congratulated one another and filed out of the auditorium in small groups, the atmosphere buzzing with excitement. Yet Gu Zhan sat rigidly in his chair like a soul sculpture, clutching the third-class merit certificate so tightly that his knuckles turned white and the edges crumpled. The provincial newspaper had been quietly slipped into his hand by political commissar Zhaomingda. Battalion Commander Gu. Zhaomingda's voice sounded beside him, carrying a hint of complex sigh. Gu Zhan snapped back to reality, his throat so dry and tight he couldn't utter a single syllable. He rose somewhat awkwardly, grabbed the newspaper without even saying goodbye, and stumbled out of the bustling auditorium. Outside, the summer night breeze carried the day's residual warmth, yet he felt no comfort, only a bone-chilling cold. He didn't know how he made it back to the barracks, nor how he ended up at his cold desk, trembling as he repeatedly dialed the public telephone number in the cotton mill residential area. The endless busy signal cut through him like a dull knife. After what felt like countless attempts, the call finally went through. A gruff male voice with a thick local accent came through. "Hello, who's this? I'm looking for Lin Wan." "Lin Wan from the cotton mill." Gu Zhan's voice was hoarse and urgent. "Lin Wan." The man on the other end paused. "Oh, the one who got into university. She's long gone. She's a phoenix that's flown up to the highest branch now." went off to the capital for her studies, left days ago, *click*. The receiver slipped from Gu Zhan's grasp and crashed heavily onto the desk. Capital, Medical University, the provincial newspaper bearing her photo burned against his chest like a red-hot iron. The person he had so easily abandoned, the one he assumed would always wait for him, had flown away without looking back, soaring to heights he could never reach or even imagine. An unprecedented, overwhelming emptiness and panic seized him. It was as if the solid ground beneath his feet had crumbled away. Revealing a bottomless void, he shot to his feet, his eyes blazing with an almost obsessive madness. He couldn't lose her like this, he had to go find her. She must just be acting out of spite. Deep down, she still cared for him. This thought seized his entire rationality like a lifeline, overwhelming him in an instant. He submitted his leave request with the flimsiest of excuses at lightning speed. Regimental Commissar Zhao Mingde studied his red-eyed, clearly distraught top officer. Hesitated with unspoken words, then finally sighed and signed the approval. 2 days later, Gu Zhan stood travel-worn before the stately gates of Capital Medical University, having swapped his uniform for a faded grey mouse suit. He tried to blend in, but his soldier's posture and the unyielding intensity in his gaze still clashed with the scholarly atmosphere. He clenched his fists, his palms slick with cold sweat. The folded newspaper clipping tucked inside his breast pocket felt like a branding iron, burning him with anxiety. He kept imagining the moment he would see Lin Wan. Over and over, he rehearsed his apology in his mind, even planning how to explain why he shouldn't have believed the rumors about Lu Xiuyun, how to promise her a better future. Time crawled by in agonizing slowness. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the old school gate, stretching Gu Zhan's lonely, waiting figure into a long shadow. Finally, as the last traces of twilight faded below the horizon, a few figures emerged from the school gate. Among them was a slender, tall figure in a simple white shirt and dark blue trousers, a canvas backpack slung over one shoulder. She was turned slightly, speaking quietly with a middle-aged man who wore glasses and carried himself with a scholarly air. It was Lin Wan. Gu Zhan's heart leaped into his throat. Almost instinctively, he straightened his back, stepped forward, ready to call out the name that had lingered on the tip of his tongue countless times, but the next second, he saw Lin Wan's face clearly under the soft glow of the streetlight. Her face had grown much thinner, shedding the last trace of youthful innocence from his memory, its contours now defined yet gentle. Her skin was pale with a scholarly pallor, as if untouched by sunlight for too long. What shocked him most was her gaze, calm, profound, like still autumn waters without a ripple. There was none of the surprise, grievance, or resentment he had anticipated, not even the slightest flicker of emotion. She looked at him as she would a tree by the roadside, a stone, a complete stranger. She was tilting her head slightly, listening intently to the middle-aged scholar beside her, a faint, polite smile of concentration gracing her lips. This composed, focused demeanor was something Gu Zhan had never seen in her before. It was as if her entire being was immersed in a world he could neither comprehend nor reach. A wave of icy cold shot up from his feet, spreading through his entire body, shattering all his preconceptions and rehearsed words into pieces. Lin Wan. The hoarse cry tore from his throat almost instinctively, raspy and parched, carrying an urgency and panic he hadn't even recognized in himself. Under the hazy glow of the street lamp, Lin Wan's steps halted. She turned toward the sound. The dim yellow light cast soft shadows across her face, illuminating her expression with stark clarity. Calm, a profound, bottomless calm. Those eyes that once held his reflection now clearly mirrored Gu Zhan's travel-worn, slightly disheveled figure, yet not a single ripple stirred within them. The bespectacled scholar beside her also paused, glancing at Gu Zhan with puzzlement before turning his gaze to Lin Wan. Gu Zhan's heart clenched under the weight of her placid, unreadable gaze. He instinctively straightened his posture, trying to reclaim some semblance of control. His Adam's apple bobbed with difficulty as he spoke in a low, urgent voice that brooked no argument, yet carried a barely perceptible tremor. "Come home with me." Under the dim street lamp, Gu Zhan's elongated shadow fell upon the mottled ground. His slightly worn Zhongshan suit couldn't conceal his soldier's upright bearing, though his shoulders seemed to sag slightly under some invisible burden. He stood at the school gate like an abrupt boundary marker, blocking the path to the hallowed halls of knowledge. "Come home with me," for words, hoarse and urgent, carrying the weariness of a 1,000-mile journey and the ingrained authority that was second nature to him. As if this were merely the finale of some farce, he had arrived, and she should now drop everything to follow him obediently. Lin Wan's steps faltered only slightly. Without even a crack in her expression, her deep, pool-like eyes clearly reflected Gu Zhan's figure, yet it was as if they mirrored a roadside stone, utterly unmoved. She didn't even glance at his outstretched, calloused hand, her gaze sweeping past him as though he were mere air. Then, with perfect composure, she turned slightly toward the bespectacled, scholarly middle-aged man beside her. Her voice was soft yet clear and steady, filled with complete focus and just the right touch of courtesy. Professor Zhou. Regarding the critical value issue for serum separation in the experimental control group you mentioned earlier, I rechecked several sets of data last night and noticed a slight time differential variable between the third and seventh group separation times. This could potentially affect the significance of our results. I have the data logbook in my bag. Would you prefer to return to the lab now to review it together? Or should I prepare a summary and leave it on your desk first thing tomorrow morning? Her speech was measured and clear, the technical terms she used completely lost on Gu Zhan. The focused immersion, the natural scholarly respect she showed her professor, stood in stark, cruel contrast to the icy indifference she directed at him. Professor Zhou, clearly taken aback by the sudden go-home command, was quickly drawn in by Lin Wan's professional inquiry. He adjusted his glasses, a flicker of approval in his eyes. Oh, a time differential variable, that's very observant, Lin Wan. Now, well, he glanced instinctively at his wristwatch, then at Gu Zhan, frozen and grim-faced under the streetlight, seeming slightly embarrassed. It is rather late now, and the lab building, data waits for no one. Professor, Lin Wan's voice remained calm, yet carried an undeniable insistence. Especially subtle variables like this, they can directly impact the credibility of the entire experimental model. I can compile a preliminary analysis tonight. As she spoke, she reached to unzip her canvas backpack, making a move to pull out her notebook. She was completely ignoring Gu Zhan's presence, treating him like inconvenient air, a fury born of utter contempt and an agony gnawed by profound panic. Like two venomous serpents, instantly constricted his heart. He watched her, wholly absorbed in her academic discussion, not even sparing him a glance, saw the focused attention she gave that professor, and the image of her past self, docile and enduring, clashed violently in his mind with her current profile, cold and sharp as frost. Lin Wan. Gu Zhan lunged forward a step, his tall frame radiating intense pressure, nearly blocking their path. His bloodshot eyes were fixed fiercely on her, his voice hoarse and distorted by extreme emotion, laced with a desperation verging on loss of control and a last shred of forced authority. I'm talking to you, come home with me, whatever it is, we'll discuss it at home. He finally shed that forced composure, revealing the anxiety within, and a barely perceptible hint of pleading. Lin Wan finally, truly looked at him. Her gaze was so unnervingly calm it sent chills down one's spine. She faintly furrowed her brows, as if contemplating some trivial obstacle. Then she spoke with utter detachment, her voice low yet cutting through the dim evening like an ice-forged blade. Comrade Chief. She even used that title which once symbolized his glory, now leaving only detached sarcasm. Excuse me. She turned slightly, her arm moving with natural grace in a protective gesture as she gently steadied the somewhat flustered Professor Zhou beside her, the motion fluid and polite. I'm rushing to finish the lab data. Her words hung in the air as she deliberately avoided even a glance at Gu Zhan, treating him like nothing more than an inconvenient obstacle on the roadside. Supporting Professor Zhou, the two of them effortlessly sidestepped his rigid form, walking with composed steps toward the brightly lit laboratory building. The sharp, steady click of her heels against the ground echoed like icy drumbeats, each strike hammering into Gu Zhan's already shattered heart. Right in front of him, she walked away without looking back, arm in arm with another man, all for some damn lab data. A tsunami of sheer abandonment and rage, the kind that shatters every last shred of dignity, instantly overwhelmed Gu Zhan. The dam of his rationality completely collapsed. Lin Wan, stop right there, he roared with a guttural, beast-like cry, his crimson eyes locked solely on her resolute retreating figure. His body moved before his mind could process, launching forward like a frenzied panther, his hand shooting out to seize her arm. He couldn't let her leave, he had to bring her back. Just as his calloused fingers were about to brush against Lin Wan's arm, as if she had eyes in the back of her head, Lin Wan didn't break stride or even glance behind. The hand that had been lightly supporting Professor Zhou dropped naturally to her side, slipped into the side pocket of her canvas backpack, and with a subtle flick of her wrist, she sent an object hurtling through the air, a brief, cold silver arc cut through the dim streetlight, accompanied by a faint whizzing sound, flying straight toward Gu Zhan's face. Gu Zhan's hand shot out instinctively, the object felt cold and hard in his grasp, carrying the distinct weight of metal. He unconsciously opened his palm, where the dim streetlight clearly illuminated what lay within, a Hero brand fountain pen. Its body was coated in that familiar dark green lacquer, but the gold plating on the cap edge had worn away from long use, revealing dull copper beneath. On the clip, tiny initials GZ, his initials, were engraved. This was the pen his regiment commander had personally awarded him for meritorious service at the Laoshan front lines. He had treasured it deeply, until that argument when Lin Wan, her eyes red-rimmed, had asked to keep it as a memento, and now, this old pen that carried the weight of bygone days and what he thought were cherished memories, had been tossed back to him like garbage. The cold metal dug into his palm, its chill piercing to the bone. Gu Zhan froze in place as if struck by a petrification spell. All movement, all shouting, all fury and panic, everything solidified in that instant. His bloodshot eyes remained fixed on the worn old pen in his palm, as if seeing it clearly for the first time. The faded plating, the dull lacquer. It was like a cruel mirror reflecting both his self-righteous past and his utterly wretched present. Meanwhile, the sound of Lin Wan supporting Professor Zhou as they walked away had already faded into the bright lights of the laboratory building. He was left alone under the dim street lamp at the school gate, a complete and abandoned joke in the eyes of the world. The night wind swept through, rustling a few fallen leaves on the ground with a soft, whispering sound. Slowly, painstakingly slowly, Gu Zhan closed his hand, the icy old pen pressed firmly into his palm, a pain that seared his very soul. He looked down at the cold metallic glint in his hand. The street lamp pinned his long, solitary shadow to the cold concrete, like an abandoned statue slowly eroding with time. That cold Hero pen felt like a scorching hot bullet casing lodged in his palm. The dim yellow light blurred the signs of wear on the pen's body, yet the engraved letters GZ burned sharply into his retinas, stinging his eyes with their intensity. Lin Wan, you. He wanted to roar, to demand answers, to rush forward and seize that resolute figure disappearing into the light and shadow of the lab building, but his throat felt clogged with sandpaper, emitting only broken, raspy whispers. His outstretched hand froze mid-air, fingertips clinging to the phantom sensation of her sleeve brushing past, a touch so cold it pierced to the bone. The lab building's bright glass windows stared back like indifferent eyes, reflecting his current disarray. A man utterly cast out of her world, reduced to an insignificant obstacle. Occasional passing students shot him curious yet wary glances, their hushed whispers pricking at his proud military dignity like fine, needling threads. Excuse me, I'm rushing to finish my experimental data. That voice, calm to the point of cruelty, echoed relentlessly in his ears. No hysteria, no bitter accusations, just an icy indifference that excised him completely from her life. She couldn't even be bothered to waste another shred of emotion on him. A colossal, unprecedented terror seized Gu Zhan's heart, worse than staring down the barrel of a gun. Only then did he truly understand. The Lin Wan who had once obediently waited in the military family compound, cooked for him, and whom he demanded understand everyone, was truly gone. She died on that cold operating table, in the cup of hypocritical brown sugar water he'd handed her, and at the base of the building Lu Shouyun had pushed her from. The woman living now was Lin Wan of Capital Medical University. Lin Wan, the top science scholar. Her world consisted of cold experimental data, rigorous academic discourse, and a future he could neither comprehend nor ever hope to reach. And he, Gu Zhan, a young battalion commander freshly decorated with a third-class merit and brimming with promise, had become a complete and utter joke in her eyes, in front of her Professor Zhou, and in the brilliant world she was racing toward. A stifled, beast-like gasp, like that of a dying animal, was wrenched from the depths of his chest, his fist clenched violently, the hard cap of the old pen digging sharply into his palm. The physical pain strangely subdued the more violent, desperate tearing sensation in his heart. He couldn't collapse here, he couldn't lose his composure at the gates of this hallowed institution like some abandoned, resentful husband. Gu Zhan forced his momentarily stooped back to straighten. The soldier's ingrained willpower, though flickering like a candle in the wind, asserted itself. He turned slowly, movements stiff and labored, then trudged away step by heavy step from the lamplit area that chilled him to the bone. Each step felt like treading on scorching embers. Behind him, the brightly lit laboratory building cast a glaring light from another world, Capital Medical University, women's dormitory. Under the dim glow of a desk lamp, Lin Wan spread open the hefty pathophysiology textbook. The pages were dense with notes, her weapons against forgetting and time. The pen whispered across the paper with calm precision. The dorm room was quiet, punctuated only by the soft rustle of her roommate turning pages. Lin Wan, a lively Beijing girl with a ponytail from the adjacent bed, leaned over and whispered, "That man downstairs just now, the one in the Zhongshan suit who looked really intimidating, he was looking for you, right? Do you know him?" Lin Wan's pen never paused, her gaze still fixed on the complex pathology diagram, her voice flat and detached, as if stating a fact that had nothing to do with her. "Just someone from the past." "Doesn't matter, someone from the past." The girl grew even more curious. "He looked like military, didn't he? The way he carried himself was terrifying, like he was ready to bite someone's head off." Lin Wan finally looked up, the dim lamplight casting faint shadows across her gaunt face. The corners of her lips lifted almost imperceptibly, a smile devoid of warmth, carrying only the cool detachment of one who has seen too much, tinged with a trace of imperceptible mockery. "Yes, I was a soldier once." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the heavy darkness outside the window before adding, her voice as light as a falling feather, "One, accustomed to giving orders." She spoke no further, lowering her head once more to immerse herself in the world of her book, as if the encounter at the school gate, enough to shatter every shred of a proud man's dignity, had been nothing more than a breeze skimming the water's surface, leaving not a single ripple behind. Her roommate watched her serene profile and felt an inexplicable chill, shrinking her neck slightly before wisely deciding not to press further. Military district, Guzhan's dormitory. The room was thick with the heavy scent of tobacco. The curtains were drawn tight, shutting out all outside light. Guzhan hadn't turned on the lamp, merely leaning against the cold wall with several crushed cigarette butts scattered at his feet. The crimson embers glowed and faded in the darkness as he clutched the Hero brand fountain pen, his knuckles white with strain. The cool metal had long been warmed by his body heat, yet it couldn't dispel the bone-deep chill in his heart. Lin Wan, Lin Wan. He murmured the name unconsciously, his voice hoarse and ragged. His mind kept flashing back to her resolute eyes in the hospital bed as she pulled out the four and signed the divorce papers. To her detached expression at the school gate when she supported the professor and calmly said "excuse me," to that calm, unfamiliar face in the newspaper alongside the glaring headlines "Science Top Scorer" and "Capital Medical University," he was wrong, terribly wrong, wrong beyond all redemption. All that talk about understanding the bigger picture, and how hard it is for a widow and her orphan. All that nonsense about her betraying him, it was just a flimsy veil to cover his own cowardice, favoritism, and wounded pride. With his own hands, through his repeated understanding, he pushed the woman who adored him completely into an icy abyss, and snuffed out her last flicker of hope. He thought she couldn't live without him, but in the end, it was him. Without her, his soul had nowhere to return. Thud, a dull, heavy sound. It was the sound of a fist slamming hard into solid concrete. The searing pain shooting through his knuckles was nothing, not even 1/10,000th, of the agony tearing through his heart. In the darkness, Guzhan's bloodshot eyes stared fixedly into the void. They churned with tidal waves of regret, mixed with the fury of being utterly rejected and abandoned, until it all settled into a still, dead despair. He grabbed the opened bottle of strong liquor from the floor, tilted his head back, and gulped it down fiercely. The harsh liquid burned his throat, making him cough violently. Tears welled up reflexively. He didn't care, he only drank more desperately, as if clutching at a lifeline, trying to numb his shattered heart with the searing pain. He didn't know how much time passed before the bottle clattered emptily to the ground. Guzhan's large frame curled into a ball in the cold corner, his head buried deep in his arms, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Suppressed, wounded animal-like sobs echoed low in the deathly silent room. There were no tears, only broken, desperate cries torn from his throat. Cotton Mill Residential Quarters. Under the dim light bulb, Lin Daon carefully placed a brand new money order beneath the glass desk cover, next to a photo of Lin Wan wearing a white lab coat, taken at the entrance of her medical school. In the picture, his sister's eyes sparkled with intelligence, her smile calm yet radiating strength. "Brother, I've received this month's stipend and sent half to you. Don't scrimp, make sure to eat well and buy what you need." Everything's fine on my end. The professor thinks highly of me and even included me in an important research project. The letter bore Lin Wan's elegant yet firm handwriting. Lin Daiyong's rough fingers gently traced his sister's face in the photo before brushing against the money order. His clouded eyes glistened with emotion as a heartfelt grin spread across his face. Stepping outside, he drew a deep breath of the chilly, coal-scented night air and felt renewed energy coursing through him. Next door, Lu Xiuyun's shrill cries and a child's wailing echoed through the walls, peppered with phrases like ungrateful wretch, heartless, and serves you right. Ever since news spread of Lin Wan's university acceptance and Gu Zhan's divorce, Lu Xiuyun's life had taken a turn for the worse. Though the theft of food coupons and a watch never went to court, the entire factory residential compound knew about it. The gossip alone was enough to ruin her. The Gu family cut ties with her completely, even taking their son Jijun away to live with his grandparents. Now she stood utterly alone, her reputation in tatters, barely scraping by on meager earnings from sweeping streets at the factory, her bitterness growing with each passing day. Lin Daiyong listened to the hysterical sobbing and cursing, let out a contemptuous tch, and slammed the door shut, blocking out the nauseating noise. He hummed a tuneless little ditty as he carefully scooped a bit of lard from a tin can, ready to fry himself an egg to celebrate his sister sending money home again. The firelight cast a warm, steady glow on his dark, honest face. In the brightly lit laboratory of Capital Medical University, Lin Wan, dressed in a pristine white lab coat, was intently adjusting the focus of her microscope. In her field of view, the microscopic world was both magnificent and precise, full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Outside the window, the biting chill of the early spring of 1984 could not dampen the fervent thirst for knowledge inside. Her journey had only just begun, and on that path, the shadow once cast by someone named Gu Zhan was long gone. Story 2. I woke up with X-ray vision and saw my husband and my best friend wearing matching red underwear, under the table. Their legs were intertwined. My best friend directly laid her cards on the table. The money you've made with your X-ray vision is enough to guarantee us a lifetime of wealth and luxury. Then my husband, without hesitation, gouged out my eyes. Back in high school, when I was at my poorest, I used these very eyes to win one more bag and feed them. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my second year of high school. On the day my X-ray vision ability was exposed, the school bully had them cornered. Playing a coin toss game, guess wrong once, and lose 5 centimeters of hair. 1. My husband, my best friend, and I have been inseparable since childhood, practically growing up in each other's pockets, but lately, I've noticed they've been secretly sharing the same pair of boxers and leaving me out. I have X-ray vision, I can see the style of their boxers. They're bright red, with a Malu, monkey, pattern. They're really ugly, but I kind of want them. At lunch, I casually asked my best friend, Su Mianmian, honey, did the store run out? You two bought matching ones. Why didn't you get me one? Before she could answer, I suddenly noticed Su Mianmian's leg resting on my husband's suit pants under the table. Su Mianmian elegantly put down her spoon and laid her cards on the table. Yi Minxin, your X-ray vision must have seen it all by now. He and I are together. Her tone was as casual as discussing the weather. I was about to ask if this was an April Fool's joke when I felt a sudden force from behind, my husband's fingers plunging mercilessly toward my eyes. Clutching my bleeding eyes with a shriek, I wailed, why, after more than 20 years together, how could you do this to me? My husband Song Chen's voice was ice cold, because, of course, three's a crowd, and you're the odd one out. Su Mianmian added, her voice sickeningly sweet, Ah Chen and I have been each other's salvation since high school. Why else would he have married you if not for your money? Good thing you're so capable. The money you've made with your X-ray vision is enough to guarantee us a lifetime of wealth and luxury. I stood there, stunned, my face wet. I couldn't tell if it was blood or tears. In high school, Song Chen and Su Mianmian were both students from extremely impoverished families. I had 10 yuan for lunch every day, which was supposed to buy me a hot bento box, but I couldn't bear to see them go hungry. So I spent 10 yuan at the supermarket, picking out food items that came with prize draws. I have X-ray vision, so I always win. That's how I kept them fed, with all the buy one get one free and another bottle on us prizes. As an adult, I used the first pot of gold I'd accumulated from scratch-offs to invest in raw jade. I earned money to put them through college, and to buy them houses and cars. For 20 years, I've watched over them like 2 fledglings, sheltering them under my wing, but now, After squeezing every last drop of value from me, they pushed me off the 20th floor, claiming to the world that I'd accidentally injured my eyes and, in despair, jumped, too. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my second year of high school. In the biting cold wind, Song Chen and Su Mianmian were waiting for me, their eyes fixed on the supermarket entrance. Su Mianmian called into the supermarket, Min Xian, I want the braised beef flavor. I remember this day from my past life. To find a buy one, get one free pack, I rummaged through the shelves, enduring the supermarket owner's disapproving glares. Finally, I got the beef flavor, but Su Mianmian said, Min Xin, what do you think the beef noodles in the cafeteria taste like? Song Chen's eyes reddened with heartache, and she instructed me, return these, I'm not eating lunch, give the money to Mianmian for the cafeteria. When the boss refunded the money, he grumbled and slammed 3 packets of instant noodles and sausages back onto the shelf. You come in here every day, picking and choosing without an ounce of shame. One more time, and you're out. They just watched, cold and indifferent, leaving me to my humiliation. That day, Su Mianmian got to enjoy a delicious bowl of beef noodles, while I went hungry the entire afternoon. The past flashed before my eyes. Reborn. I walked out of the supermarket, clutching 10 yuan in my hand. I smiled at them, waving my hand. Mianmian, you're right. On a cold day like this, nothing beats a steaming bowl of braised beef noodles. Then, under their bewildered gaze, I turned and ducked into the cafeteria. Su Mianmian anxiously called out, Min Xin, but Song Chen held her back. In my past life, no matter how cold it was, to share food with them, I was stuck with just bread and instant noodles. Why did I put myself through that? Now, I just ask for extra numbing spice and double the meat. I packed up a steaming, fragrant beef noodle soup to bring back to the classroom. At this hour, most students are out grabbing a bite, so the classroom is usually empty. But just before I walked in, I saw Song Chen and Su Mianmian intertwine through the classroom door. 3. Su Mianmian was sitting on Song Chen's desk, her slender arms wrapped around his neck. Her sweet voice drifted out, Aiken, is Min Xin mad at us? Song Chen pulled away from her, dragging the girl off the desk. Get down. Su Mianmian, however, snuggled into Song Chen's embrace. Her youthful figure was curvaceous, and her voice was soft. You like Min Xin because she's kind, don't you? But look at today, it's just the two of us huddling together for warmth. This time, Song Chen just stood there, letting her hug him, not pushing her away. I couldn't believe it. They were already getting cozy this early on. Behind me, Lin Huaichu, the school bully, walked over from the end of the hallway and looked down at me, asking, why aren't you going in? Hearing the conversation inside the classroom, he kicked the door open with a furious rage. Song Chen and Su Mianmian were in an ambiguous embrace when they heard the noise and hastily pulled apart. After Lin Huaichu gestured for me to close the door, he coldly looked at the two of them. What did I tell you guys? He grabbed the scumbag couple by the scruff of their necks, one in each hand, and tossed them into the corner. If I ever catch you two messing around again, if you dare to disgust me one more time, I'll deal with you. Lin Huaichu had actually seen them messing around. I remembered my past life. Lin Huaichu had subtly hinted at it to me. As I shielded Song Chen, who lay motionless on the ground, Lin Huaichu gave a self-deprecating smirk. Yi Min Xin, can't you tell I'm sticking up for you? Later, the school bully, feared by all, actually pleaded with me in a soft voice. Please, stop hanging out with those two childhood friends of yours. Okay, they're not good for you. I was brainwashed into believing Song Chen was an unforgivable bully, so I didn't hold back when I confronted him. They treated me badly, so what makes you think you'd be any better? He actually paused for a moment, then said, I suppose I could be. In my past life, I always stood firmly by Song Chen's side, giving him the cold shoulder. What should I do? It seems I really misunderstood him. 4. Standing before him, Lin Huaichu tossed a coin, hitting Song Chen right between the eyebrows. Song Chen, feeling utterly humiliated, lowered his head and respectfully picked up the coin, handing it back to Lin Huaichu. Lin Huaichu then threw a pair of scissors onto the ground, saying, let's play a game. You guess heads or tails, guess wrong once, and your hair gets cut by 5 centimeters. Su Mianmian pleaded with me, looking utterly helpless. Min Xin, please help us. I smirked, thinking, of course, they'd drag me into this. In my past life, Lin Huaichu also forced them to play this game. I was soft-hearted back then, helping them guess coin flips. I never got one wrong, not once in dozens of tries. But then they found out about my clairvoyance. which indirectly led to my death. If I ever help them again, I'm a total idiot, I sighed softly, a helpless frown creasing my brow. But there's nothing I can do, baby. A person's destiny should be in their own hands, shouldn't it? I need to take control of my own destiny too. I'll let you all watch me quietly make a fortune, while you don't get a single penny. Lin Huichu's pronouncements echoed through the classroom. Guess wrong. Snip, wrong again. Snip it. My heart remained unfazed. I even started eating my beef noodles. Suddenly, I'm curious about a love story between a bald person and someone with a receding hairline. After all, I only lost my eyes and my life, but they lost their hair. 5. The trial finally ended after a long time. The corners were filled with broken hair, and Su Mianmian's eyes were red. Minxin, why didn't you help us? Why didn't you help us find a teacher? Song Chen also stared at me intently. Min Xian, I always thought you were a kind, good girl. Can kindness put food on the table? I picked up a piece of beef, golden red and richly fragrant. Su Mianmian swallowed, and Song Chen's Adam's apple bobbed. I popped the beef into my mouth. So good, can't you see? I'm busy. You've got hands and feet, go do it yourselves. They wouldn't dare. Sure enough, their two bald heads, like kiwis, both recoiled. I scoffed, then got up to go after Lin Huichu. The young man was leaning casually against the wall, waiting for someone. When he saw me, he awkwardly turned his head away. I bullied your two childhood friends. Are you mad at me? I shook my head, and said sincerely, Lin Huichu, I know you were trying to help me get justice. I'm sorry, I realized it too late. His eyelashes fluttered as he lowered his gaze to meet mine. I offered him a milk candy. This is my apology for misunderstanding you. Lin Huichu carefully reached out to take it, his fingertips sending a jolt of warmth through my palm. Where even then, I should apologize too. I scared you by losing my temper just now. Lin Huichu's profile was exquisitely defined, sharp lines etched by the warm midday sun. I never realized he was so handsome. In my past life, I listened to Song Chen and avoided Lin Huichu like the plague, never truly looking at him. My gaze inadvertently drifted to the physique beneath his school uniform. You don't know what you're missing until you get a peek. Oh wow, that's juicy. Lin Huichu's ears turned red. 6. Song Chen and Su Mianmian spent the entire afternoon bundled up in their coats, hats pulled low to hide their bald spots. Su Mianmian sat beside me. Yet she seemed to despise me instantly and drew a clear line between us by noon. When the teacher called on us to recite returning home, I kept my head hung low. With my poor grades, how could I possibly remember the text? To my shame, in my past life I was a poor student. Every penny I made from gemstone gambling ended up lost in failed investments. Before I was murdered, I was planning a comeback in jade gambling to pay off my debts. So Song Chen and Su Mianmian only inherited my aunt credit pay balance and maxed out credit cards. My thoughts were abruptly interrupted when Su Mianmian stomped hard on my foot. I instinctively cried out in pain, and my Chinese teacher immediately called on me to recite. A triumphant smile played on Su Mianmian's lips. I had no choice but to use my X-ray vision on Lin Huichu's textbook, stumbling through the recitation word for word. To my surprise, my cheat worked a little too well. My Chinese teacher was practically in tears. The recitation was assigned just this afternoon, and I only asked for one paragraph. Yet, Yi Minxin here recited the entire text flawlessly. What a genius! Applause broke out in the classroom. Beside me, Su Mianmian bit her lip hard. My face burned crimson, not from praise, but from Lin Huichu's textbook. While reciting the text earlier, I'd spotted my portrait tucked between its pages. It was cut out from a group photo, and whoever did it was very careful. The edges are perfectly neat. No way, does he actually like me? In my past life, Lin Huichu had expressed his affection, but I thought he had ulterior motives and rejected him with sarcasm. Song Chen said, this is just his new bullying tactic. He wants to drive a wedge between us, guys like him. Born with a silver spoon, our masters at manipulating people. Times had changed, and as I stared at Lin Huichu's straight back, I felt numb with guilt. I had failed this young man, neglecting his pure affection. 7. Unfortunately, I still can't reciprocate his feelings right now. I've closed myself off to love, focusing solely on my studies. My past life's repeated investment failures have become my personal demon. What I need isn't just success, but knowledge. That afternoon, a blind box vendor came to the school to hand out flyers. Each desk now had an extra flyer, adorned with exquisite fairy dolls. The girls excitedly poked and pointed at them, this limited edition is absolutely stunning. They say the odds of getting it are only 1 in 1,000. Even the regular version looks fantastic though. In my past life, I adored this limited edition. While Su Mianmian became completely obsessed to the point of forgetting to eat, I walked across the entire city, scanning mystery boxes with X-ray vision, until I finally found it in a dusty little gift shop. I was carrying my limited edition doll home when I ran into Song Chen, who was waiting downstairs at my place. That was the first time Song Chen hugged me. His strong heartbeat was louder than the wind. Min Xin, I like you. We've known each other for 10 years. My feelings for you have long surpassed dependence and turned into love. Before I could even respond, Su Mianmian appeared, tears streaming down her face. You two are together now, so you won't abandon me, right? She cried all night until I gave her the limited edition doll. I was staring at the flyer, lost in thought, when Lin Huaichu happened to turn around to rummage through his bag and shot me a glance. Do you like this one? I shook my head, no longer interested, but some might still think I am. 8. The next day, Su Mianmian showed up at my desk with a whole crowd in tow, holding a blind box in her hands. She said excitedly, Song Chen saved up a year's worth of meal money to buy this for me. Do you think I can pull a limited edition from it? I cursed under my breath. I'm such a damn fool. No wonder they haven't seemed hungry these past couple of days. Turns out, they actually have meal allowances. All that talk about not being able to afford food, they were just messing with me. In my past life, I was so frugal I could make a penny stretch into 3. What did that even amount to? My hands suddenly twitched with an urge to snatch their hats off and expose their bald heads to everyone. They can mess with me, so why can't I get my revenge? Suddenly, a classmate looked at me, puzzled, and asked, Isn't Song Chen your childhood friend? Why didn't he give you a ride? People started chattering. Do you think Song Chen has a thing for Su Mianmian? People definitely treat their lovers differently from friends. Su Mianmian tore open the blind box with a triumphant look, only to find a common item inside. Oh, what a shame. Don't worry, this one's pretty nice too. Just as Lin Huaichu returned to his seat, the classroom instantly fell silent. Lin Huaichu turned around and, without a word, placed a limited edition elf doll on my desk. Here, take it. The guys behind him smiled at me kindly. Brother Lin bought thousands of blind boxes and opened them one by one to find this. Thousands of them. How long will it take him to open them all by hand? Are you dense? I already told you I don't like it. My eyes welled up a bit, and my fingertips lingered on the fairy doll. Given a second chance at life, I've wanted to have it all, but I never dared to hope that anyone would care about me. I've always been the one giving, so it's the first time someone has genuinely cared for me. Around me, a crowd started to gather. Wow, it's so beautiful. Can I touch it? Su Mianmian glanced down at her own ordinary version, her beautiful face contorted with jealousy. Just then, Song Chen walked towards my seat, holding another blind box. Su Mianmian's voice suddenly shot up, loud enough for the whole class to hear. Min Xian, you actually slept with Lin Huaichu just for a blind box. 9. My classmates, not understanding what was going on, all looked at me in surprise. Song Chen's knuckles were white, the blind box in his hand crushed out of shape. He gripped my wrist, his expression forlorn. Min Xian, Lin Huaichu gave you a gift. Are you really with him? Lin Huaichu turned around, his eyes brimming with anger, on the verge of an outburst. I shook off Song Chen. What? You're allowed to give gifts to others, but no one's allowed to give them to me. Su Mianmian immediately spoke up in Song Chen's defense. Min Xin, as your friends, we just want to save you. If you can sleep with someone for a blind box today, tomorrow you'll be able to. Lin Huaichu slammed his fist on the table, making a terrifying clatter. He glared at Su Mianmian, suppressing his anger. Are you done talking? Su Mianmian didn't dare to utter another sound. Song Chen, however, stubbornly declared, Min Xian, even if he beats me to death today, I will save you. I can't stand by and watch you destroy yourself. That's hilarious. Weren't you two each other's saviors? And now you suddenly remember to include me, without my protection. Let's see if you can save yourselves first. I raised an eyebrow and chuckled. Oh, Mr. and Ms. Redemption. Could you two please stop insulting the word redemption? A classmate beside me burst out laughing, then quickly stifled it. I calmly met Su Mianmian's gaze. So, by your logic, since Song Chen gave you a blind box, does that mean you two slept together too? Song Chen, shaking the blind box, defended himself. I was going to give you one too. I scoffed. Well, thanks a lot for that, but aren't you a student from a low-income family? I'm the one who pays for your meals every day. So where did you get the money to buy blind boxes? A classmate interjected angrily. No wonder she saved up a year's worth of meal money. Turns out she was just using Mean as her long-term meal ticket. I shot Song-chan a mocking glance. So, you used my money to buy someone else a gift, and just grabbed something for me on the side. Is this how you redeem me, my savior? Song-chan's hand fell limply to his side. Following the direction of his hand, I saw right through to Su Mian, who was raising her foot, ready to stomp on me. I acted decisively, stomping hard on her foot a split second before she could react. I don't hold grudges. I get my revenge right then and there. Su Mian shrieked and bent over, her hat falling off to reveal a bald head with jagged, uneven cuts. The air stood still for a moment. The whole class was collectively stunned by that bald head. After a moment, someone covered their mouth and whispered, "So ugly." Su Mian's face instantly flushed crimson. She shrieked, clutching her head, and pointed at me, yelling, "It's all you mean, Sheen, all her fault." I caught her and Lin Huichu getting intimate, and she cut my hair to threaten me. 10. Su Mian ran out of the classroom, crying. Song-chan glanced at me with a complicated expression, then quickly followed Su Mian. Lin Huichu lifted his eyelids, scanning the others with a menacing gaze. If anyone dares to breathe a word about what happened today. The crowd had completely dispersed, each person assuring me as they left, "Brother Lin, we didn't hear anything, and we won't say anything," but I could see right through them. The moment they stepped out the door, they couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. I forced a smile, knowing that the days ahead were destined to be anything but peaceful. In the vast classroom, only Lin Huichu and I remained. In the silence, I stroked the fairy doll and thanked it. Then I asked the question that had been bothering me for days. "Lin Huichu, why are you so good to me?" "Because I like you," Lin Huichu confessed, his eyes unusually gentle. "At first, when you stood up for your two childhood friends, I thought, this girl is really cool, even cooler than me. Later, I slowly realized we have kindred spirits. We both protect those in our circle fiercely. You're my deskmate, and I've seen how good you are to your friends. In my eyes, there's no one more wonderful than you in this world. Yi Min-shin, please, just look at me sometimes. I'll be devoted to only you." I believe it. In my previous life, Lin Huichu never dated anyone, not until the day I died. Even though he came from a well-off family and was surrounded by beautiful women, Lin Huichu, in a low voice, tried to persuade me. "Yi Min-shin, it's hard for people like us to find someone who's willing to put in the same amount of effort. Song-chen and Su Mian aren't worth it." It felt like a knockout blow, yet what died was my former self. With gratitude, I still declined. "No puppy love for me. It ruins grades." Lin Huichu looked baffled. "But your total score was just 300 when you weren't dating." Flipping through a stack of 40-something score papers, I said mournfully, "My ideal type is someone studious, the kind who'll eventually be a stay-at-home husband raising kids." The remark was meant to discourage Lin Huichu, yet his blush slowly crept down to his neck. "Your wish is my command." "Huh, you've totally misunderstood me." For some reason, my heart skipped a beat and I suddenly didn't feel like correcting him. 11. As finals approached, apart from me being targeted by nasty rumors, Song-chen and Su Mian weren't having it easy either. Lin Huichu had them roughed up to keep them quiet, while other classmates seized every chance to mock them. "Hey Savior bro, found yourself a new sugar daddy yet? Miss Savior, why don't you save your own hairline first?" Su Mian took all her frustrations out on me. While I was buried in my studies, she'd just sit there making snide remarks. "Yi Min-shin, you're just not cut out for studying. No matter how hard you try, it's useless. You'll never surpass me." My pen didn't even pause from solving problems. "Oh, shut up, Sister Redemption." Her face turned green. Our grades used to be pretty similar, but then Su Mian kept pestering me to help her copy down her incorrect answers, and that's when I started falling behind in my studies. But she wasn't entirely wrong. My final grades remained stagnant, completely overshadowed by hers. I spent days sighing over my report card, something Lin Huichu quietly noticed. Before the break, Lin Huichu asked me, "Want to come over for tutoring during winter vacation?" My family hired a teacher. Seeing my hesitation, he added, "It won't just be us, a few of my buddies are joining too. We're all starting from scratch in a group class." For a fleeting moment, my heartstrings were gently plucked. "You're so thoughtful. You've considered everything for me. If I was falling behind, they'd find a teacher for me. If I felt awkward, they'd bring in a buddy to cover for me." I sniffled. Lin Huichu. You don't have to go this far for me, Lin Huichu smiled faintly. I'm doing it willingly. 12. Throughout the winter break, I was out early and back late, learning everything from scratch alongside Lin Huichu and the others. Every night, when Lin Huichu walked me home, I'd invariably see Song Chen's slender, solitary figure waiting downstairs by my building. Lin Huichu frowned and asked, "He comes to see you every day, you're not going back to him, are you?" I shook my head frantically. His tone suddenly turned forceful. "You are not to reconcile with him. I overheard him and Su Mianmian plotting to make you drop out of college and work to support their studies." I almost couldn't stop myself from beating them to death. In that instant, a flood of memories washed over me. Lin Huichu, in my past life, you were the only one who stood by me. Even I became a traitor to myself, willingly giving up on the college entrance exam. I choked back sobs. "You fool. You're the only one who cares." Lin Huichu didn't know why I suddenly hugged him, his hands frozen mid-air, unsure whether to drop them or not. Only when I collapsed sobbing against his chest did he flusteredly begin stroking my back. The knots of melancholy from memories slowly unraveled beneath the warmth of his palms. In my past life, Song Chen's parents made him quit the college entrance exams to work and support the family. Just one day before the tests, Su Mianmian tried to persuade me. "Mean Shin, with your clairvoyance, you don't need college, just earn money to help Chen." I wanted to refuse, but Song Chen's words shattered my defenses. "With your current grades, you'd only get into a vocational college, better gain real-world experience early." Later, they both got into the same university. The day they received their admission letters, I ran my fingers over the gilded lettering on the covers, again and again. University felt so close, yet so incredibly far away. Looking back now, they knew me too well. They were certain I wouldn't cheat on the college entrance exam with my X-ray vision, and even more certain I'd compromise for them, but I didn't know them well enough. It turns out they had already planned everything, long before they even discovered my X-ray ability. What's even more depressing is that my current scores are only good enough for a junior college. 13. When school started again. The news that I had been to Lin Huichu's house spread like wildfire. Our homeroom teacher called us in for a talk, saying, "You're still young. If you let things get out of hand now, you'll regret it for the rest of your lives." He didn't believe we were studying. His gaze was worried and full of meaning. As I stepped out of the office, Lin Huichu quickly caught up to me, grabbing my wrist. "I won't bully you, and I won't take advantage of you. Please don't avoid me, okay?" He looked as if he were facing a formidable enemy, which made me chuckle. I ran my hand over his abs. "In that case, how about I bully you instead?" He leaned in close, docilely letting me have my way with him. "We still need to study together, right?" I whispered, "Let's keep it a secret." Our eyes met, and our faces flushed. It was supposed to be a legitimate study session, so how did it end up feeling like a secret romance? I ran into Lin Huichu at the cafeteria entrance, and his buddies, as usual, collectively yelled sister-in-law at me. Lin Huichu quickly interjected, "Don't talk nonsense, it'll look bad." His cautious demeanor was a far cry from the arrogant school bully he once was. His buddy was utterly wronged. "Brother Lin, you never cared about looking bad when you got into fights and got disciplinary actions, did you?" One time, I ran into Lin Huichu lecturing a girl who was spreading rumors that I'd had an abortion. "Consider this a warning shot. If it happens again, I can't guarantee what will happen." His brother added, "If I recall correctly, you once wrote a love letter to Brother Lin. You're just jealous of his wife." Touched. I bought candy for everyone. A group of us walked across the playground, lollipops in our mouths, laughing and joking. Someone complained to me, "Sister-in-law, can you please talk to Brother Lin? He's so engrossed in his studies every day that he has no time for us." I chuckled, looking up to meet Lin Huichu's gaze. Under the sunlight, the young man's features were striking. What a beautiful day it was. Rumors will eventually fade. What truly matters is cherishing the present and growing together. As this thought crossed my mind, I suddenly sensed someone's gaze burning into my back. In the distance, Song Chen was staring intently at us with unreadable dark eyes, leaving Su Mianmian's outstretched hand holding bread frozen mid-air. 14. That night, the two of them were lying in wait outside my apartment. Su Mianmian crossed her arms and fired off 3 rapid questions. "Why did you betray us? Didn't you promise to only be good to us? Why did you buy them food?" I laughed in exasperation. "My stuff goes to whoever I choose. I'll be nice to whoever I damn well please." Song Chen looked sorrowful. "Min Xian, Do you like Lin Huaichu? It was the first time I had to confront that question head-on, pushing aside my guilt, indebtedness, and gratitude towards Lin Huaichu. I seriously recalled his wild spirit and his tenderness. Then, the furious pounding of my heart gave me the answer. I like Lin Huaichu. The next second, Song Chen pulled me into a tight embrace. Minxin, please don't leave me. I love you. Why don't you understand? I struggled to break free. You call that loving me? Sneaking around, holding hands and hugging Su Mianmian behind my back. Caught off guard, Song Chen stammered out explanations as his little secret was exposed. I just got carried away. Minxin, you're the only one in this world who truly cares about me. I can't lose you. Su Mianmian tried to pull him back. Aiken, don't do this, she glared at me, her eyes burning with hatred as if she wanted to tear me to shreds. Yi Minxin, are you happy now? It's all your fault. Aiken's parents won't let him study anymore. From Su Mianmian's hysteria, I pieced together the truth. Without my overt and covert support and maneuvering, the wheels of fate began turning anew. The timeline shifted. Song Chen's parents cut off his education funding earlier than before. After that night, I rarely saw Song Chen at school anymore. His parents found him some odd job. No one knew what he was doing out there, showing up to class just once a week, always filthy and reeking. Su Mianmian was constantly skipping classes to hang around Song Chen, and her grades plummeted. 15. Meanwhile, Lin Huaichu and I decided to fight back against the rumors. We were the first to arrive at the classroom every day and stayed to study together until everyone else had left. No one paid any attention to the snide remarks or the scandalous rumors anymore. We kept each other in check. My notes were all over his reading assignments, and he'd scribbled alternative solutions on my geometry problems. As I dozed off at my desk, Lin Huaichu draped a jacket over me and sighed softly. My future girlfriend is practically becoming my comrade in arms. Among his buddies, one had quit smoking, saying, I'll light up after I solve this problem. Nah, forget it, I'll wait until I get into a good university. Someone had zero interest in the punk looking for a fight. Scored 20 points higher in chemistry today, in a good mood, so I'll let you off this time. As for Lin Huaichu, upon hearing about the new school tough guy throwing his weight around, he just calmly ticked an exercise problem. Just some hot-headed kid, he'll understand when he settles down someday. The slanderous rumor, like a bullet in flight, finally hit its mark after the mock college entrance exam results were posted. Even the lowest scorer among us pulled over 400 points. My score far surpassed Su Mianmian's in her previous life. Based on their current grades, Song Chen and Su Mianmian would only qualify for the same vocational college. The classmates suddenly realized, Su Mianmian really was just making things up out of thin air. The homeroom teacher, deeply moved, held my hand with one hand and Lin Huaichu's with the other, like an officiant at a wedding. Your teacher trusted you guys back then. Hey, don't leave, let me explain. 16. Lin Huaichu led me away from everyone, to the swing set in the corner of the playground. As the swing swayed back and forth, I tiptoed on the ground and softly asked, Lin Huaichu, what kind of university do you want to apply to? One by the coast, or one closer to home? He pushed me higher. The University of Yi Minxin. I hope to get into your university. My heart felt like it was squeezed tight, then released, and the knot of dread that had been hanging over me simply unraveled. Someone actually wanted to include me in their life plan. After everyone else had abandoned me, I embraced the wind, my hair flowing freely, tracing an arc of liberation. So, it's a deal then. Lin Huaichu reached out and embraced me from behind, holding me incredibly close. After we pinky swore, he playfully refused to let go of my hand. Now that we've made this promise, don't push me away again, I'd go crazy. I let him hold my hand, and a memory from a past life surfaced. I vaguely recalled a classmate mentioning that Lin Huaichu had become quite depressed after going abroad for university and soon dropped out to return home. Neither of us will make the same mistakes again, I softly said. Don't be afraid, we'll get into the same school. We'll have a future. Unsure if I was comforting him or myself, but the closer it got to the college entrance exam, the more my left eyelid twitched. The day before the gaokao, after I'd seen the exam hall, Su Mianmian cornered me in a small alley. She pointed the tip of a knife at my eyes, her hand trembling with madness. The day before the gaokao. Huh, what perfect timing for Aichen and me to be reborn. Yi Minxin, you've been reborn too, haven't you? Are you still deluding yourself into thinking you can change everything? Then I'll just gouge out your clairvoyant eyes again. What? She and Songchen were reborn too. 17. The knife tip was getting closer and closer to my eyes, and I backed away step by step. After creating a bit of distance, I suddenly tackled Su Mianmian to the ground. We wrestled, and I struggled to grab the knife, but Su Mianmian was incredibly agitated, and her strength was astonishing. She pinned me down, then raised the sharp knife to my eyes again. The knife plunged in cleanly, but the pain wasn't as intense as in my previous life. Opening my eyes, I was shocked to see Songchen catch the knife with his bare hand. Su Mianmian's stab was swift and brutal. Blood gushed from Songchen's wound. She scrambled over to check on him. Aiken. Songchen ignored her, pulling me up to ask anxiously, "Are you hurt anywhere?" He had tidied himself up today, looking more presentable than usual. Min Xian. Not a day has gone by since your death that I haven't regretted it. Your scent is no longer on the sheets, and there's no one to stand by me when I face difficulties. Su Mianmian used her sleeve to wipe away Songchen's ceaseless blood. Aiken, why are you telling her all this? We're the couple here. Songchen pushed her away and continued speaking to me. In my past life, I lived under your protection, yet I always misunderstood that you wanted to control me. So I grew tired of the clothes and food you chose for me, tired of your advice, and even thought that if you died, I would be free. But Minxin, I was wrong. I miss you so much. Can you spoil me just one more time? I coldly rebuked him. Dream on, Songchen. A man cannot step into the same river twice. Before, I was foolish, repeatedly putting the knife that would kill me into your hands. You're nothing but a good-for-nothing, just taking advantage of my love for you. My desire to be with you forever. Songchen looked as if he was about to shatter. In times like these, love itself becomes a weapon, and this time, I'm the one wielding it. I hadn't even finished speaking when I suddenly heard something heavy hit the ground. At the alley's entrance, Lin Huichu's tall figure cast a long shadow. He stood there, breathing heavily, clearly having rushed to find me. His phone lay shattered beside him, but he paid it no mind, as if by some cruel twist of fate. Lin Huichu only caught the words, "I want to be with you forever." His dark eyes were utterly dead, like those of a lone wolf, pierced to the bone with sorrow. 18. Lin Huichu's gaze turned icy, and he kicked Songchen to the ground. His fist shot towards Songchen's face, but halfway there, it changed direction. It slammed into the ground, blood gushing out. My heart ached terribly, and tears welled up almost instantly. That was the hand meant for tomorrow's college entrance exam. Lin Huichu gave a desolate smile, using his bleeding hand to wipe away my tears. Are you feeling sorry for him? Stop crying. Didn't I bring him back to you safe and sound? Why would I want him back? What good is Songchen to me now? This is just impossible to explain. My mind raced. Should I tell Lin Huichu everything about my rebirth? As I hesitated, Lin Huichu had already picked up his phone and left alone, his back looking desolate. I quickly chased after him, hearing Su Mianmian's threat from behind. I'm not going to make things easy for you. Running out of the alley, I only managed to catch a glimpse of the exhaust fumes from Lin Huichu's Cayenne. I returned home disheartened, his wounded gaze replaying in my mind. I've made up my mind to come clean about my rebirth right after the college entrance exams. Just as I was about to test if his shattered phone could still make calls, an incoming call suddenly came through. Sis. Brother Lin's been drinking heavily and refuses to treat his injured hand. Nobody can talk sense into him. I'm sending a driver to pick you up immediately. When I arrived at the Lin family villa, several empty liquor bottles lay scattered across the living room floor. His brother asked me, "Sister-in-law, Brother Lin said Songchen took a hit for you, and you were so touched you want to be with him forever. Is that true?" I immediately denied it. They were playing poker, and after I joined, I could see Lin Huichu's hand through clairvoyance, a terrible hand, not even a single bomb. When he was down to his last pair of threes, I looked at my double kings and 4 twos, and without batting an eye, I said, "I'll pass." When the cards were revealed, everyone started teasing, "Sister-in-law really knows how to have fun." Then they started shaking the dice cups to guess high or low. Lin Huichu's dice cup showed a 1, but I, without batting an eye, declared, "I bet high, of course." I lost, so I chose to do a dare. Lin Huichu's lashes fluttered as she murmured with a pout, "Comfort me." 19. Someone teased, "Bro and sis-in-law, honored to be part of your little game. Haven't I spoiled him enough? Even my legendary X-ray vision that never lost a gemstone bet and earned billions in my past life is now dedicated to pampering him." Lin Huichu grabbed the bottle again and took another desperate swig. "It's the day before the college entrance exams. What the hell are we doing? Rage surged through me. I slapped Lin Huichu across the face, tears of despair streaming down. Did you forget our promise? Are you giving up on me? Lin Huichu's head was snapped to the side from the blow. I can't accept this. Why did Song Chen and Su Mianmian have to ruin everything in the end? I raised my hand high once more. His brothers stood up one by one, trying to smooth things over. Sis, go easy on his face. Lin wasn't drinking, the clear one was Sprite, the red one was Coke. He just wanted to see you and talk, that's why he lied. If you're really mad, hit the other side too, make it symmetrical for brother Lin. Sis, our homeroom teacher said we could take it easy on the last day before exams. We only played for half an hour, we're heading back to study now. With that, everyone scattered in a flash. Lin Huichu pursed his lips, and when he spoke again, the air was thick with jealousy. My apologies for interrupting your rekindled romance. And for making you cry tears of heartache. I carefully took his hand, disinfected it, and bandaged it. It's not a serious injury, it's still usable. I finally breathed a sigh of relief and explained, why would I feel bad for Song Chen? I was worried about your hand. You have an exam tomorrow, you came late and didn't hear everything. I was just rejecting him. Lin Huichu pulled me into a tight embrace, so strong it felt like he wanted to crush me into his very bones. A warm breath brushed past my ear, tickling it. Min Xian, we're alike. We both want to protect the people we care about. I feel that way about my brothers, and you feel that way about your friends. But I'm in so much pain because the person you've always protected was never me. I gently wrapped my arms around his waist. For the rest of my life, I'll only protect you. Starlight regathered in his eyes, and he asked, with a childlike innocence, when are you going to make things official? I traced the strong line of his jaw, and whispered mysteriously, when you least expect it. 20. The exam went smoothly, and Lin Huichu and I walked out of the testing center together. Outside the exam hall, Song Chen was quietly waiting, holding a bouquet of flowers. His dignified appearance attracted media attention for an interview. Young man, are those flowers for your girlfriend? Yes, they are. Song Chen nodded and presented the bouquet to me. The reporters quickly turned their cameras my way, eager to capture this exciting moment. I didn't take Song Chen's flowers. Instead, I stood on my tiptoes and kissed Lin Huichu's cheek. Lin Huichu, I like you. Then she flashed a sweet smile at the camera. This is my real boyfriend. Don't get it wrong next time. Song Chen froze on the spot. Lin Huichu was startled at first, then immediately pulled me into an embrace and whispered in my ear. So this is your idea of unpredictable. You like playing with fire. Huh, I smiled, taking the hand he offered. All the karma from our past lives had been completely reset, and my beloved and I shared an unknown future. After the results came out, Lin Huichu and I successfully got into the same university, just as we'd hoped. Like Song Chen, Su Mianmian didn't take the college entrance exam. She was convinced I cheated on my high-scoring exam using clairvoyance and reported me for copying the top student in front of me. However, surveillance showed no unusual behavior from me, and my score was even higher than the person in front, so it all ended up being a farce. I studied business, followed the path of my past life, accumulated initial capital through jade appraisal, and began researching new investment projects. One day, I saw Song Chen in the bustling campus. He was on the other side of the asphalt road, waving at me. This scene feels incredibly familiar, almost like a flashback to a past life. I was carrying bags and bags of gifts to visit Song Chen at his university when I overheard his roommate ask him, that uncultured, stinking nouveau riche isn't your girlfriend, is she? Su Mianmian is better than her in every way, isn't she? Song Chen quickly denied it. She's not, but now the tables have turned. Song Chen has become the outsider, the one who doesn't quite fit into the university scene. 21. Song Chen came to visit me. He didn't state his purpose. Instead, he started reminiscing about his childhood. When we were 5, we couldn't afford a 50-cent soda, not even a 30-cent popsicle. You'd take us foraging for wild fruits. You were always quicker at finding them than us. Only later did I realize it was because you had those eyes. He was lost in thought. A warm glow in his eyes. Once, you fell from a tree, and I carried you the whole way. That path felt so short. How wonderful it would be if we could have walked it together for a lifetime. Song Chen, as if presenting a treasure, opened his hands wide before me, revealing a handful of deep purple wild berries. I've washed them, they're clean. I slapped his hands away. Get lost. The wild berries scattered across the ground, some bursting open, others getting stained with dirt. Song Chen carefully crouched down, searching meticulously until he'd picked up every last one before putting them in his mouth, squinting with contentment. He smiled, sweet. Finally, Song Chen asked me, Min-shin, may I hold you one more time? The corners of my lips curled as I remarked sarcastically, I'm just an uncultured, stinking nouveau riche. How could I ever be worthy of your embrace? Song Chen's eyes gradually dimmed, becoming as desolate as the night itself. I pulled away without a second thought. An asphalt road, like a clearly defined border between two warring states. Across the street, Lin Huichu stood tall, waiting to walk with me through life's journey till our hair turns white with age. 22. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. To my surprise, it was Su Mianmian asking to meet. I was about to hang up immediately. Su Mianmian began sobbing on the other end. Min-shin, Achin is dead. He gouged out his own eyes and jumped from the 20th floor. His parents abandoned him, and he has no family or friends in this world. Could you please come and see him off? I shot back, Su Mianmian, when I died in my previous life, did any of you see me off? And when you did, were you crying or laughing? There was a long silence on the other end before she spoke, her voice choked with emotion. Min-shin, the three of us grew up together, and I've always envied your leadership. After I found out Achin liked you, I became even more afraid of being excluded by you too. At first, I just tried to seduce him, but then I fell hopelessly in love with him. If only I had known Achin would die like this, I wouldn't fight for anything anymore. I just want him alive. Min-shin, since we can be reborn, do you think we can go back to being children again? She stood frozen in confusion while I decisively hung up the phone. Within days, Su Mianmian leapt from the same building clutching Song Chen's ashes. I'll never know what truly happened after my death in the previous life, or what triggered their rebirth. In the end I didn't attend their farewell, yet memories from when I was 5 erupted uncontrollably, clamoring through my mind. Little Song Chen was covered in bruises from his parents' beatings, and Su Mianmian wore ill-fitting, tattered clothes. I led them through tall grass, chasing dragonflies, filling our 5-year-old world with peals of laughter. Back then, they were so dirty, yet so pure. Looking up again, wild clouds drifted alone, leaving no trace of their coming or going. 23. My career is going much better than in my previous life. I married Lin Huichu right after graduation. The day we got our marriage certificate, I suggested, I've been working on my arm strength lately, let's see if I can carry you. Lin Huichu, clearly amused, wrapped his arms around my neck. I tried my best to give him a princess carry, but even though his long legs were still dragging on the ground, I stumbled with every step. The two of us collapsed onto the bed. Breathless, he rolled over on top of me, showering my face with burning kisses. My love, he whispered, I was just a good-for-nothing drifter with no ambition. Everything I have today, it's all because you saved me. His words were so sweet, and I smiled as I kissed him back. But as I smiled, a question began to form in my mind. What exactly did he mean by saved me? My clairvoyant vision, which has always been my saving grace, seems to be failing me lately. In business, I can't see the numbers on my competitors' bids, yet I consistently win the contracts. The last time I used my clairvoyance was when Lin Huichu proposed. I saw the diamond ring hidden in his suit pocket. The diamond ring shimmered, then became invisible to my sight again. The final flicker, like X-ray vision bidding me farewell. Superpowers, special abilities, golden fingers, these could make millions flock in pursuit, yet without knowledge, even these would lead to utter failure. Why, after 20 years of shared history, how could you do this to me? In the end, Lin Ru came to realize that the human heart is more easily concealed than anything else. So, what exactly is salvation? 24. One night, Lin Huichu had a nightmare. He pulled me into his arms from behind, sobbing uncontrollably. I woke up with a start, eager to turn and embrace him, but Lin Huichu held me fast, pressing his head against the back of my neck. Soon, I felt dampness on the collar of my nightgown. He said, Wife, let me tell you a story. I had a nightmare. In it, you loved Song Chen until your dying day. I drifted through life in a daze, in a world where you didn't love me, surrounded by women I didn't care for, and couldn't get rid of. I waited for over a decade, but your marriage was happy, and you never even bothered to glance my way. So, I knelt in prayer all night, begging for your eternal happiness, but you still died, killed by Song Chen and Su Mianmian. They put on a show at your funeral. I went mad, drove my car into them, and killed them. I was sentenced to life imprisonment, and I spent the rest of my days in prison, longing for you. this must be what happened in my past life. Then, my heart ached so much I could barely breathe. Lin Huichu's previous life was truly filled with suffering. My eyes were vacant as I stared blankly at the moonlight outside the window. Huichu, what do you think salvation is? This seemed to be a proposition he'd pondered deeply, for he answered without hesitation. Redemption is when Yu Minxin finally loves Lin Huichu. On that cicada-filled summer night, we held each other tight, kissing away tears as we surrendered to the tidal wave of passion. At last, I understood, if redemption must spring from love, then thank you, Lin Huichu, you've redeemed me too. Story 2. I died in the year I loved him most. To appease his white moonlight, Pei Xian locked me in the basement for a full day and night. Later, a short circuit caused a fire, and I suffocated inside. In my last moments before death, I saw a young man wielding a stool, frantically smashing the door lock to rush to my side. The fire scorched his clothes, yet he paid no heed. Who could it be? I can't remember. I only know that in the end, I died in his arms. After death, my soul still lingers by the boy's side. The fire grew fiercer, yet he held me tightly, unmoving. I couldn't help but shove his body, roaring at him, "Run! Are you waiting to die here?" But I also knew he couldn't hear the cries of a ghost like me. It wasn't until the fire truck rumbled in that he was carried out by a dozen firefighters working together. So I finally left this damned basement. The sun was shining brightly outside. What a fine day it was. I saw Pei Xian outside the villa, pacing nervously back and forth, grabbing anyone in sight to ask, "Has the girl in the basement been rescued?" Oh, he still doesn't know I'm dead. See? This guy I've liked for 10 years, even if I were being consumed by flames, he wouldn't dare rush in to save my life. My corpse remains cradled in the boy's arms. Without looking at anyone, he walked straight to a black car. He opened the door and placed me in the passenger seat. He even thoughtfully fastened the seatbelt for this corpse of mine. Then the car sped away abruptly, leaving the villa district behind. The young man fled in panic with the dead girl, like a scene straight out of a movie. We left the city. The scenery outside gradually turned into fields, villages, and then beaches. He arrived at the sea, a deserted, undeveloped beach. Finally, the car came to a stop. He carried me out of the car and slowly walked into the deep seawater, gradually sinking with me to the bottom. He said, "Jianghe, I'm Lin Zhou. Do you still remember me?" 2. You're not about to confess your feelings, are you? Confess, confess. I opened my eyes to find myself standing in a high school classroom. Surrounded by classmates aged 17 or 18, a girl pushed me. "Jianghe, is that a love letter you're clutching in your hand?" A dry piece of letter paper was crumpled and deformed in my hand, with neat handwriting on the envelope. To Pei Xian. I traveled back in time to the day I confessed my feelings to Pei Xian in high school. It's Friday afternoon, nearing the end of the school day. In 5 minutes, Pei Xian will walk into the classroom. I handed this love letter to him in front of everyone. What did he say back then? Oh, he said, "Sorry, I don't want to be in a relationship right now." No, I shook my head. "You got it wrong." At that moment, Pei Xian walked in through the classroom door. Someone shouted at him, "Pei Xian, Jianghe has something to tell you." The tone was clearly one of looking for amusement. I tore the letter in half down the middle and calmly said, "Nothing's wrong, everyone's just joking." After speaking, I threw the torn letter into the trash can. Pei Xian stared at my face for a long while. Without saying a word, he returned to his seat. The onlookers who had gathered around let out bored sighs of disappointment. Sigh. I thought there would be some good drama. Let's disperse. Nothing to see here. I was flipping through a book at my desk, as school was about to end and everyone was cheerfully packing their bags. But I vaguely remembered there was still one more thing. Perhaps it wasn't important to me at the time, so it got buried in the long river of my memories, until the homeroom teacher walked in, and I suddenly snapped back to reality. It's him. 3. The students immediately stirred and whispered complaints when they saw the homeroom teacher enter. "Wow, what time is it already? It's almost dismissal time." The homeroom teacher frowned. "Our school is a private middle school, considered elite education for the privileged. The students here are all from wealthy or influential families, making many of them difficult for him to manage." The homeroom teacher waved outside. "Come on in." He walked in from outside the classroom door. Lin Zhou. I remember now. He was a transfer student, having moved to our school in his senior year from another city. He always wore a faded school uniform, and his backpack was old and frayed, standing in stark contrast to the extravagant style of the rest of the class. Perhaps because of this, he rarely spoke to others and was often isolated. He always sat alone in the back row, working on problems in his exercise book, yet his academic performance was outstanding, consistently ranking at the top, never falling out of the top 3 in his grade, especially in science subjects where he nearly scored perfect marks every time. Lin Zhou bent slightly toward the class and introduced himself. My name is Lin Zhou. With Zhou as in water can carry a boat but also overturn it. I've transferred here from Xuqing next door. The homeroom teacher nodded, pointing to a seat at the back. He said, go sit there. So Lin Zhou walked across the entire classroom step by step with his backpack and sat behind me. He slowly took out his textbooks and neatly arranged them on the desk, somewhat uneasy, somewhat bewildered, but it's okay, at 17. We still have time, still have the chance to start over. 4. After the homeroom teacher left, the classroom became noisy again. Everyone turned their heads, looking at Lin Zhou with curiosity. The class troublemaker Fu Xing walked over and asked him, Xuqing, that coal city nearby, my family does business there too. What's your dad's name? Maybe my parents know him. Lin Zhou pinched his fingertips, looking somewhat flustered. He murmured, my father isn't in business. He he couldn't be a coal miner down in the pits, could he? Fu Xing picked up his words and laughed. Many people here learn to fawn on the powerful and despise the weak, to scorn poverty and adore wealth. From their teens, many people found this place interesting and gathered around to watch. Fu Xing became even more smug, picking up Lin Zhou's book and sniffing it. There really is a smell of coal. Ha 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 ha. Disgusting sounds of mockery. I can't take it anymore. I stand up, grab the water from the cup, and splash it on his head. Is your nose a dog's nose? Classmate Fu Xing was drenched by my water and glared at me in humiliated anger. He rolls up his sleeves and glares at me fiercely. Jianghe, looking for death. Sorry, but I've actually died before. Perhaps Jianghe in high school was shy and introverted, but the 28-year-old Jianghe is not. I laughed. Yeah, looking for death. In the end, no fight broke out. Pei Xian walked over, frowning at me. What's wrong with you today? Let's go home. Pei Xian was the class monitor, and his Pei family held the most power in the entire Nan city. Fu Xing naturally wouldn't cross him, but when I see him, all I can recall is the raging flames. Being choked to death by smoke is truly agonizing. I said, let's not go back together anymore. After school, I'll stay behind to study for the college entrance exams. Pei Xian snorted, looked at me strangely. Jianghe, what kind of crazy idea has gotten into you? The kind of crazy where I don't want to see you anymore. I pointed at the classroom door. Can you stop disturbing my studies? Class monitor, the class beauty He Shimeng from next door is still waiting for you at the door. 5. Pei Xian, He Shimeng and I have been childhood friends who grew up together. Our parents had business dealings and often socialized with each other. I used to think Pei Xian treated me very well. He would call me little He sister. In reality, he truly only saw me as a younger sister. The one he has always liked is He Shimeng. He Shimeng stood at the door, waving at us. Brother Pei, what are you talking about with Jianghe? Are you two coming or not? Pei Xian glanced at me again, tapped my desk with his index finger. If you really can't grasp physics, I can tutor you on weekends. Then picked up the school bag and walked towards He Shimeng. %%. Finally, only Lin Zhou and I remained in the classroom. %%. The classroom wall clock ticked away with a steady sound. %%. Behind me was the rustling sound of Lin Zhou's pen writing on scratch paper. My impression of him has always been that of a serious and diligent top student. But, Lin Zhou, what do I look like in your eyes? I turned around, resting my hand on the back of the chair, carefully examining him. His brows, eyes, and the corners of his mouth gradually merged with the image of the man who had held me in the sea of flames. He said, Jianghe, I'm Lin Zhou. Do you still remember me? Perhaps I was staring too intently. As Lin Zhou noticed something amiss, he looked up at me strangely, raised his hand to touch his chin, and cautiously asked, is there something on my face? I shook my head and hurriedly said, no. How embarrassing. To break the awkward atmosphere, I randomly pulled out a set of physics exercises from the desk compartment, flipped to a page, and placed it in front of Lin Zhou. Could you help me with this problem? Seeing the question, Lin Zhou instantly felt relieved. He glanced over it and said, this problem isn't actually that difficult. I can't even do simple problems. My physics is super weak, the kind that seriously drags down my grades in every exam. He took out a scratch paper and swiftly wrote down 2 formulas. It's like this, and then this. Then he asked me, "Do you understand now?" Me, I let out a long "oh" sound. He smiled and said, "How about I help you build the foundation?" Lin Zhou probably noticed my actual level from my confused expression. He closed the workbook, took out the textbook, turned to the beginning, and said softly, "Let's take it slow from chapter 1, 6. I think Lin Zhou's tutoring skills are better than my rigid, dogmatic high school physics teacher, far better than Pei Xian. That's right, in my previous life, I was always following Pei Xian around, bothering him with all sorts of wrong questions. Pei Xian, can you help me with the kinetic energy theorem? Pei Xian, why can I never solve the last math problem? Pei Xian, so annoying, no wonder he always gives me that cold glance. Are you an idiot, Jianghe? You can't do anything right, until the school security came knocking at the door, standing aggressively at the classroom entrance and shouting at me and Lin Zhou, "What are you 2 students doing here so late? Why aren't you home yet? Should I call your parents?" Lin Zhou and I suddenly realized it was almost 8 o'clock. The school was about to lock its gates too, so we hurriedly packed our bags, apologizing while running out. We kept running until the school gate, where a car honked its horn and stopped beside me. The driver rolled down the car window and called out to me, "Xiaohe." It was Uncle Zhang, our family driver. Seeing that I hadn't returned home so late, he had specially driven over to pick me up. "Hurry up and get in the car. Your mother is still waiting for you to have dinner at home." Uncle Zhang glared at me, his tone not particularly friendly either. I quickly pulled open the car door and glanced back at Lin Zhou. "Lin Zhou, it's so late. Do you need us to give you a ride home?" "No need, my home is quite far, in the western suburbs. It's not on your way." He wore that awkward expression again, with a slightly stiff smile. "Besides, there are still buses running at this hour. It's very convenient." Lin Zhou waved at me and ran toward the bus stop. "The western suburbs are quite far. It takes over an hour by bus. I've only been there once. The area isn't fully developed yet, with old buildings and bungalows everywhere, and trash piled on the ground." I shouted at him, "Lin Zhou." He turned around. I asked him, "Do you know what my name is, under the streetlight?" His face flushed slightly red. I said, "My name is Jianghe. Jiang is in ginger, he is in seedling. You better remember that." 7. Although I've time traveled, none of my high school academic knowledge came with me. This is a very tragic incident. Moreover, as I was originally just an average student with mediocre intelligence, I had no choice but to spend weekends hunched over my desk reviewing high school textbooks. Almost every line was filled with notes. I'm not smart, but I've always worked hard. Just as I was racking my brains over the study material, my phone suddenly rang, startling me. It was actually He Shermeng. She sent me a photo on WeChat, the library study room, a few books, and 2 cups of milk tea on the table. She made a pained expression. "Xiaohe, brother Pei came to study on the weekend, and I'm not even an academic student. It's so boring. Are you coming?" He Shermeng is a dance student. Pei Xian is really something. I never realized his thought process was so unusual. Arranging a date at the library, I replied briefly with 2 words, "Not going." She stopped replying. I kept reading. As I read on, my mind became tangled like a ball of paste. I really missed that afternoon when Lin Zhou explained the problems to me, so clear and helpful. I opened my phone, downloaded the recently updated contact list from the class group chat, found Lin Zhou's phone number, and dialed it. He answered quickly. I said, "Classmate Lin, Jianghe." He asked hesitantly. I smiled and said, "I was doing some problems and thought of you. Hope I'm not disturbing you." We talked about many things, about which teachers in class were the strictest, which ones were a bit snobbish, and some campus legends and gossip stories that had been circulating for ages but Lin Zhou had never heard before. He kept agreeing with me, occasionally joining in with exaggerated exclamations. It greatly satisfies my desire to express myself through storytelling. This young man is truly gentle. But why can't I remember where exactly I had crossed paths with him before? We kept talking for quite a while before finally hanging up. I casually opened my moments and scrolled through. Surprisingly, Pei Xian actually posted an update for once. Reviewed some physics concepts today, still quite rewarding. The picture showed a corner of a physics workbook, a bunch of likes, and so many classmates left comments. Class monitor, help me out, physics is seriously killing me, holy crap. Why is the genius suddenly getting serious? Pei Xian, if you keep improving you'll score 200 points. please stop studying already. Before Lin Zhou transferred to our class, Pei Xian's grades had always been the top in our class, surpassing the second place by dozens of points. It wasn't until Lin Zhou arrived that his position began to be challenged. The two of them had nearly identical exam scores. They took turns securing the first and second places in tests. Other classmates always hoped to witness the intense rivalry between the two top students, a tense showdown, but unfortunately, from what I recall, Pei Xian and Lin Zhou might not have exchanged more than 10 sentences. The two of them could hardly be considered familiar with each other. 8. Having disturbed Lin Zhou for so long, I actually felt quite embarrassed about it, so that evening, I rummaged through the kitchen for some ingredients, baked a box of cookies, and prepared to give them to Lin Zhou as a gift. I used to tinker with these little gadgets all the time, and I'd even bring the cookies and cakes I experimented with to Pei Xian for taste testing. But in my previous life, when I once went to his company office, I accidentally saw the cookies I gave him in his drawer. He only ate one piece, the rest were untouched, some even moldy. I just realized he actually didn't like any of the gifts I gave him. My mom heard the noise and came downstairs to the kitchen to check on me. Wasting food again. My mom frowned. Pei Xian doesn't even like eating this. Can't you try something different? Who said it's for Pei Xian? It's for my new classmate. I packed the cookies into a box, straightened my back, and answered loudly, "That's the spirit." My mother looked at me curiously, marveling at how I'd changed my ways. During break the next day, I turned around and placed the cookies on Lin Zhou's desk. He carefully opened the box, and his eyes instantly lit up, surprised, happy, and a little at a loss. He said, "Classmate Jiang He, you're the first person to make cookies for me. It feels so good to have your efforts recognized by others." Just as Pei Xian walked out of the teacher's office, carrying a stack of test papers, he happened to pass by our row, suddenly stopped in his tracks, glanced at us, and inexplicably said, "Did you make these cookies?" This guy appeared out of nowhere, startling both me and Lin Zhou. Pei Xian stared at the box of cookies for a long moment, then said strangely, "Jiang He, you once said you wouldn't casually give away food you made yourself." I scratched my head. When I pursued Pei Xian in high school, I think I really did say that. "Pei Xian, no one but you will ever get to taste the desserts made by my own hands." Jiang He, how love-struck I was. Why expose me like that? I guiltily lowered my head, not wanting to deal with him. Seeing that I wasn't talking to him, Pei Xian went to chat with Lin Zhou instead. "I heard you're quite good at physics." He placed the test paper on the desk, as if casually picking a topic to ask. Lin Zhou shook his head and replied modestly, "Not really, just average." "No need to be so modest." Pei Xian pulled out a test paper from the stack and handed it to Lin Zhou. 98 points, that's very high. This is the test you took when transferring schools, right? I just went to the office to get the last quiz questions and brought this back for you. I leaned over to look. Aside from a few points deducted on the final problem, the rest were perfect scores. Pei Xian pointed at the deducted points and said, "This is a question from the physics competition. Take some time to think it through carefully." In my previous life, Pei Xian had been receiving tutoring from an off-campus teacher to prepare for the physics competition. In the end, he won an award and even received bonus points for the college entrance exam. Seeing how attentively I was listening, he suddenly flicked my forehead. "Jiang He, do you even understand this?" I glared at Pei Xian angrily. "Don't push your luck. Do you really think I won't improve?" He smiled, and unexpectedly looked somewhat gentle. "Why didn't you come to the library on the weekend? Didn't I say I'd explain the problems to you?" This was the first time I'd heard him say something like that. But, I shook my head. I asked Lin Zhou about the ones I didn't know. "He sits right behind me." Pei Xian's expression froze. He glanced at me, then at Lin Zhou, said nothing, and walked away coldly with the test papers in his arms. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and said indifferently, "Jiang He, you must attend Shermang's victory party next Saturday, won't you?" 9. Shermang's celebration party, the turning point that changed everything. Shermang is an art student, so the academic requirements aren't high. As long as she passes the art exam, she can pretty much get into a school. In her previous life, she performed exceptionally well. Several prestigious dance schools extended offers to her. This was truly a joyous occasion. Shermang's father hosted a banquet at a 5-star hotel and specially gave her 2 days off, allowing her to celebrate with friends outside. The condition was that she couldn't stay out overnight. It's no wonder her father made such a request. She usually plays around a lot. She has friends from all walks of life. He Shermang booked a luxury suite at KTV, and I went there too at the time. There were both classmates from our school and some friends from her off-campus art class. It was noisy and chaotic, very loud. Pei Xian and Shermang were surrounded in the middle. Two people were egged on to sing a duet. It was almost dawn when my mom video called me. He Shermang happened to be nearby and saw the caller ID. She said, "My mom mentioned she went shopping with your mom today and should still be playing mahjong at your place. My phone's already off. Don't answer the call. She'll definitely try to drag me back through you." Unfortunately, I'm a goody two-shoes. In the end, I still answered it. Sure enough, two people appeared on the other end, my mom, and He Shermang's mom. He Shermang's mother shouted loudly, "It's so noisy over there, Shermang. Don't you see what time it is? Are you coming home or not? Tell me where you are. I'll have the Jiang family's driver pick you up." He Shermang glared and protested, "Mom, can't you stop bothering me? I just finished my exams. Let me have one night out. Am I going to lose an arm or a leg?" Both of them were stubborn as mules. After arguing for a long time, He Shermang's mother finally said, "If you don't come home tonight, don't even think about getting next month's allowance." He Shermang was the little rich girl at school, with 50,000 yuan in monthly allowance. This single sentence immediately shut Shermang up. Cursing under her breath, she hung up the phone, declaring her carefree evening officially over. Later, Pei Xian escorted us downstairs and waited with us in the lobby until Uncle Zhang arrived with the car. During this period, He Shermang didn't say a word to Pei Xian. She was a little angry. While talking to her mother on the phone, she kept signaling to Pei Xian, hoping he would come out and help her say a few words. Even just "Auntie, don't worry, I'll take care of Shermang tonight" would have been enough. He Shermang's mother really likes Pei Xian and even intends to matchmake the two of them. If Pei Xian had spoken up, he might have actually agreed to Shermang's request, but that guy was completely cold that night, utterly unmoved by Shermang's plea. In the end, Shermang's little arms couldn't win against her mom's big legs, so she had no choice but to go home with me. "It's all your fault." She stomped her foot and gritted her teeth. "Neither of you is any good. What a disappointment." 10. On the way back that night, there was a car accident. The traffic police later concluded that our family's driver, Uncle Zhang, was driving under the influence and would bear full responsibility. He Shermang and I lay in the hospital for half a month. Her injuries were more severe than mine, with damaged leg ligaments that would prevent her from dancing for several years. He Shermang's mother wept heartbrokenly by the hospital bedside. She grabbed Uncle Zhang, swearing to make him pay with his life. Uncle Zhang later bore legal responsibility and paid compensation, but what good did it do? What the He family never lacks is money. This is a turning point. If that car accident hadn't happened, He Shermang would have stayed in the country, and the three of us would still get along like we did in high school. A few years later, Pei Xian might have ended up with Shermang. I might feel sad, perhaps, but after a good cry, I'd still sincerely wish them well, then set out to find my own path in life. But this car accident changed everything. He Shermang gave up dance academy and went abroad to study at an art school. Pei Xian and I went to the same city for college, and occasionally, we'd meet up. He knew I had a crush on him, but the thing he said most often was, "Jiang He, do you think you're being fair to Shermang?" Both of us were wrapped in guilt. He would fly across half of China to buy Macau almond cookies for Shermang and mail them overseas. He would also stay up late setting alarms to snag Jay Chou concert tickets and accompany her to the show, just because she mentioned wanting to go. As for gifts during annual holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries, they were never missed. Later, after living abroad for several years, Shermang returned to China. Pei Xian found her old friends and threw a celebration party for her. The party lasted until dawn. After singing a song, He Shermang held the microphone and suddenly asked me, "Jiang He, now that you've graduated so many years ago, does your mom still care whether you come home at night or not?" At that moment, the air suddenly became deathly silent. I knew she had never truly forgiven me. Pei Xian called helplessly, "Shermang, brother Pei, don't interrupt me." Shermang, drunk, spoke with increasing arrogance. "Isn't Jiang He supposed to be a good girl? Since you don't fit in with us anyway, maybe locking you alone in a small room would make you happier." She clung to Pei Xian's arm, her voice sweet and coquettish. I couldn't utter a single word. I wanted to argue, but it always felt like I owed her something. Pei Xian sighed. He glanced at me, then took out the keys and, together with He Shermang, locked me in the basement. He Shermang patted the basement door and shouted with a laugh, Jiang-hee, I'll open the door for you after I finish the party. I don't know why her party lasted so long. I only know that a fire broke out. 11. The tragedy of my past life. I won't let it repeat itself after crossing over. I know it's nearly impossible to stop He Shermang from celebrating her exam success. I choose not to attend myself. If I don't go, Uncle Jean the driver won't be driving to pick us up. On Saturday evening, Pei Xian gave me a call. When are you coming over? It was very noisy on the other end. I could barely hear. I'm not going. Doing problems. I said, do as you please. After a moment of silence, Pei Xian replied coldly. I hung up the phone, feeling that my reputation as a diligent bookworm was now thoroughly established. Nearing midnight, I went downstairs to take another look. Uncle Jean was in the kitchen video calling his old army comrade while chatting, drinking, and eating dishes. He saw me and waved. Xiaohe, why aren't you asleep yet? I opened my mouth, hesitating to speak. Finally, I said, Uncle Jean, you're getting older. Try to drink less from now on. In the living room, several women were thoroughly enjoying their mahjong game. He Shermang's mom just won a hand at mahjong. Her luck was really good. She glanced at her watch and suddenly remembered something. Oh no, Shermang went out to have fun tonight. I wonder if she's back home by now. I should give her a call. The phone was off. Tried calling again, still couldn't get through. The girl next to her urged, Sis, it's your turn to be the banker now. You wouldn't want to run away after winning, would you? That's not how it works. He Shermang's mother couldn't keep calling either, shuffling the cards while laughing. Look at what you're saying. As if I'd go back on my word. I lay on the bed in the bedroom, watching the time on the wall clock tick away. Outside was utterly quiet. It seemed like an extremely ordinary night. I gradually sank into sleep like this. 12. The next day, I was woken up by my mother. Jiang-hee, come down for breakfast. It's only 8 o'clock. Bleary-eyed, I grabbed my phone from the bedside table, opened WeChat Moments, and started scrolling. A classmate posted an update, the campus belle and the top student a perfect match, don't you think? The photo shows Pei Xian and He Shermang. Both were leaning on the sofa, eyes closed in sleep, with He Shermang's head gently resting on Pei Xian's shoulder. Probably stayed too late at the party until everyone got exhausted. Someone caught a whiff of gossip potential. Took their photo, and deliberately posted it online. Many teasing comments below. I always knew there was something off about these two, our school's top celebrity duo. Seeing this photo instantly woke me up. Suddenly sat up from the bed. The car accident never happened. He Shermang never left the celebration. Everything was perfectly fine. So excited that I immediately gave it a like, followed by commenting, this is so wonderful. After a while, when I clicked to refresh again, that post had disappeared. Pei Xian actually gave me a phone call. Jiang-hee, he suddenly said, last night everyone got too rowdy. I went to sleep in the middle and didn't join the fun afterwards. Oh, why are you telling me this? He smiled and said, I thought you would go. If I'd known you weren't going, I wouldn't have gone either. I rubbed my nose, not knowing how to respond. The two of us fell silent for a while. I said, if there's nothing else, I'm going to have breakfast now. He gave a hum of acknowledgement. See you at school tomorrow then. 13. Although the photos were deleted from the social circle, gossip spreads incredibly fast, especially since quite a few classmates attended Shermang's gathering that day. On Monday at school, I could sense everyone secretly buzzing with gossip, but I didn't join in, because in a few days, the monthly exam results would be out. This was Lin Zhou's first important exam after transferring to this school. When announcing the rankings, the homeroom teacher deliberately created suspense. This time, a dark horse has emerged in our class. Good, competition drives progress. He paused. Lin Zhou, ranked first in the grade. The class instantly erupted in excitement. This was the first time Pei Xian, the top student in the class, had been pulled down from behind. Lin Zhou, that transfer student Lin Zhou, he doesn't even talk to us. Right before the college entrance exams, another top student shows up. Although I already knew Lin Zhou's capabilities, it couldn't dampen my excitement. I turned around and excitedly reached out my mischievous hands to touzle Lin Zhou's hair. Lin Zhou, you're truly amazing. Lin Zhou's hair became a complete mess from my ruffling. He wasn't angry at all, just smiled gently. My deskmate probably couldn't stand it anymore and nudged me with an elbow. Jiang-hee, keep your voice down. She gave me a meaningful look. Can't you see the class monitor is upset? I followed my deskmate's gaze to look over there. Pei Xian sat by the wall, looking back at me and Lin Zhou fooling around, his lips pressed into a thin line, his gaze icy cold, as if he was about to freeze into a statue. I immediately got a chill. I lamented my lack of empathy. After all, Pei Xian had been the top student in our grade for nearly 3 years, and suddenly ranking second would be hard for anyone to take. Am I still here laughing heartily? Isn't that rubbing salt in the wound? I coughed twice, a bit more low-key. After a long while, Pei Xian's gaze finally shifted away from me. I quickly took a deep breath. Thanks to Lin Zhou's tutoring, my grades have improved significantly, so now every Friday after school, I voluntarily stay with him for 2 more hours of self-study, benefiting from the top student's guidance. But unexpectedly, Pei Xian actually stayed behind too. As soon as the class bell rang, he Sherming ran to our classroom door. Brother Pei, let's go home. She waved at Pei Xian just like before. Pei Xian neither went out nor packed his school bag. He told he Sherming from his seat, from now on, you go back first, I'll stay for some self-study before leaving. As soon as these words were spoken, the classmates who hadn't left yet turned to look. Class monitor, is this really necessary? You got admitted with a lowered score requirement and you're still being so serious. Do you really have to compete so hard that it kills the rest of us? Because of his Olympiad award, Pei Xian's target university directly lowered his admission score requirement by 60 points. Even if he underperforms in the exam, he definitely won't fall below the admission score of his ideal school. Pei Xian ignored them. After everyone had left, he directly carried his books and sat down next to my seat. I was baffled. Pei Xian answered matter-of-factly. This spot is close to Lin Zhou, making it convenient for us to discuss problems. Left me speechless. Should I step aside to make room for you 2 top students? Before I could speak, Pei Xian actually took out a problem and started discussing it with Lin Zhou. Lin, do you have a simpler approach to this problem? I think I'm overcomplicating it. I immediately recognized it as a question I got wrong on the exam. So I stopped trying to shoo Pei Xian away and quietly listened as the 2 academic giants exchanged insights. A small fry like me just reaped the benefits of their wisdom. 14. After a whole evening self-study session, I felt like all my brain cells were about to ascend to a higher plane. Pei Xian and Lin Zhou often had different approaches to solving problems. So when their ideas collided, it usually brought new inspiration. It was almost 8 o'clock when Pei Xian took out a book and tapped my head with it. Jianghe, time to go home. Only then did I snap out of my daze and come back to reality. Yeah, let's go. Ever since I told my mom that I'd be staying at school for a while after classes on Friday, she's had Uncle Zhang pick me up 2 hours later. Lin Zhou still insists on taking the bus back by himself and never lets me see him off. And this time Pei Xian joined us too. As the wealthy heir of a prominent family, his own household surprisingly didn't even send a car to pick him up. Pei Xian rubbed his nose and shamelessly looked at me. Have Uncle Zhang drive me home. Remember how our families used to take turns sending cars to pick us 3 up after school? I gave him an eye roll. Class monitor Pei, can't you follow classmate Lin's example and take the bus home? Make your own contribution to energy conservation and emission reduction. Pei Xian dismissed my nonsense with disdain. How about I call your mom and tell her you abandoned me at the school gate late at night, leaving me to fend for myself? I'm really at my wit's end. The 2 of us sat in the back row. Uncle Zhang drove quietly in front, and for a moment, I felt that even with Pei Xian, we had nothing to say to each other. The cityscape receded outside the car window. Suddenly, Pei Xian asked me, Jianghe, there are only a few months left until the college entrance exams. Have you decided where you want to go? That remark actually reminded me. It's time to start thinking about college applications. I want to go south. I want to see the ocean. But in my previous life, because Pei Xian chose a university in the north, I eagerly followed him there. Not that the city was bad, it just wasn't right for me. Pei Xian noticed I wasn't speaking and softly added, when you've made up your mind. Tell me. He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself, and looked at me. I want to go study in the same city as you. I didn't react immediately. Haven't you already decided which university you're applying to? I countered. Top-tier universities, with lowered admission scores. More importantly, that school also has many of the Pei family's connections. Most of the Pei family's friends and relatives graduated from there. So there's really no reason for him to change his target school now. He shook his head. Without answering my question, he just repeated, Jianghe, we should be in the same city in the future. 15. I have no interest in being in the same city as Pei Xian. At night, I curled up under the blankets and sent Lin Zhou a WeChat message. Little Lin, have you decided which university you want to apply to? After sending it, I felt my question was pointless. With Lin Zhou's grades, which school couldn't he get into? Lin Zhou replied to me quickly, haven't decided yet. What about you? I want to go somewhere warm, humid, where I can see the ocean, I typed while imagining. What a coincidence, me too, this guy is clearly copying me. In my previous life, I worked hard in high school, but largely just to go to the same place as Pei Xian. This time, I want to work hard for myself. In the second semester of senior year, the atmosphere in class gradually became more serious. The countdown to the college entrance exam weighs heavily on everyone's head. Even private high schools like ours couldn't escape the tradition. The principal specially organized a pre-exam mobilization rally, inviting the top-performing students to give speeches sharing their study and test-taking experiences. Unsurprisingly, Pei Xian and Lin Zhou, as typical academic elites, were both selected as student representatives. I remember this mobilization rally being excruciatingly boring. In my previous life, I struggled to endure until Pei Xian's appearance. After listening to his articulate speech, the remaining few classmates couldn't hold on any longer and eventually sneaked out of the auditorium to take a walk on the playground. I have no impression at all of Lin Zhou's speech, maybe it was at the very end, and I missed it. Thinking about it this way, it's a bit of a pity. Fortunately, I had the chance to start over. This time, I made a special effort to stay fully alert, waiting for Lin Zhou to appear. However, even after Pei Xian finished speaking and most of the others had come out, I still didn't see Lin Zhou. Just as the student council organizer passed by, I grabbed their arm and asked, "Hey, about Lin Zhou from our class, why hasn't he come on stage?" "I haven't seen him either." The person frowned, sounding rather displeased. "He's not answering his calls either. The performance order was all arranged, and now he's completely messed it up. What's going on?" It was then that I suddenly realized something might have happened. I abruptly stood up and ran out of the auditorium. Where could he be? I took out my phone and called Lin Zhou, just as the student council said. I tried several times, but all calls showed no answer. The campus was so large that I was running around between buildings like a headless fly, while continuing to uselessly dial Lin Zhou's number. I comforted myself that he wasn't an elementary school student, he'd surely be fine. As I ran to the playground, memories suddenly flooded back into my mind in an instant. I remembered, in my previous life, after listening to Pei Xian's speech, I secretly slipped out of the auditorium for a walk. When I reached the gymnasium area, I heard strange noises and commotion. Driven by curiosity, I walked to the window and saw several classmates surrounding a young boy, continuously punching and kicking him. They were hurling vulgar insults at him. At the time, I didn't know why, but my sense of justice surged. I pushed the door open directly. I pulled the boy away from those people. "If you bully others again, I'll report you to the teacher." I even left such a threatening remark. Looking back now, that person was none other than Lin Zhou. I took off running wildly. I sprinted all the way to the gymnasium and slammed the door open. The scene before me was exactly the same as in my previous life. Lin Zhou was surrounded in the middle, with a few troublemakers from our class standing by, including Fu Xing. "Your family just digs coal for a living. What's so great about being good at studying? You still want to give a speech on stage? Well, I won't let you. I can't stand pretentious top students like you. What skills do you even have?" After spending more time with Lin Zhou, I realized that his living environment in class was actually much worse than I had imagined. In high schools like ours, people particularly love forming cliques and small groups, and Lin Zhou, being naturally mild-mannered, a top student who transferred midterm from a poor family background, didn't belong to any of these clusters, so he was often excluded, even suffered from bullying. In this world, he still has a friend like me by his side. I can hardly imagine how lonely his life was in his previous existence. Perhaps it was precisely this kind of situation that made him particularly sensitive to the slightest kindness. Perhaps I merely pulled him out of Fu Xing's group on a whim, yet he's remembered me for so long. I'm not afraid of these rich kids like Fu Xing. They saw me and stopped me. "Jianghe, what are you doing, playing the hero?" This is different from the previous storyline, especially since I might have come at the wrong time. The mobilization meeting had just ended, and students were dispersing in this direction. Some noticed the commotion here, pushing the door open and peeking inside. "What? I don't remember such a grand spectacle that time. Seeing the onlookers, Fu Xing grew even more excited. Jianghe, I've noticed for a long time that there's something off about your relationship. Are you two secretly involved? If it were just any ordinary classmate today, I wouldn't have bullied Lin Zhou so much, but it just had to be you. Tell you what, if you admit you like him, I'll apologize properly. 16. Our school just loves watching drama unfold. The onlooking students let out a perfectly synchronized sound. Who's that? It's Jianghe from class 4. And, the top student in our grade. Lin Zhou stood up, tugging at my hand, his face pale. Jianghe, he smiled. Forget it. Don't put yourself in a difficult position, with so many classmates here. What can he possibly do to me? That's what he said, but, I'm the kind of person who can't resist a challenge, so what if I like Lin Zhou? I stiffened my neck and said loudly, is having a crush illegal? Which school rule says we're not allowed to date? Being straightforward isn't actually that hard. Nobody probably expected me to admit it so readily. For a moment, no one spoke, not even the usual cheers from spectators. It was Fu Xing who first broke the silence with a stutter. Jianghe. What a heroine, what's going on here? Causing trouble in a group. At that moment, a sudden voice came from behind the crowd. The college entrance exams haven't even happened yet, and you all want disciplinary records. The crowd instinctively parted to make way. The person coming over looked somewhat familiar. I thought about it and realized it's probably the student council president. The president pointed at Fu Xing and his group of troublemakers, speaking sternly, you're about to graduate. Yet you're still bullying fellow students. Have you read the school rules? Don't you know we strictly prohibit campus bullying? Prohibiting campus bullying is one of the most important rules in our school's code of conduct, although in reality, there are countless instances of privately ostracizing weaker classmates, but none have escalated to the school administration. This time, Fu Xing is about to be made an example of. The chairman pointed at them one by one, genuinely like Lin Zhou. Hearing me say this, Pei Xian seemed momentarily stunned, as if he couldn't process it. He stood there dumbfounded, not saying a word. After a long pause, his face twisted into an expression of pain, panic, and a touch of pitifulness. Suddenly, he pulled out a letter torn into several pieces from his pocket, carefully holding it between his fingers as he showed it to me. Jianghe, you're lying to me, right? What did I do wrong? There's no way you like Lin Zhou. If you liked him, how could you have written me a letter like this? This is the love letter I wrote to Pei Xian. But it's already been torn up by me and thrown into the trash can. I don't know why it ended up in Pei Xian's hands. I looked at him strangely. Pei Xian forced a somewhat bitter smile and admitted without hesitation, that's right, I fished it back out from the trash. I admit I wasn't sure how much I liked you back then, and I was afraid a relationship in senior year would affect my studies, but I truly never imagined, Jianghe, that you'd fall for someone else. Seeing that love letter, I actually felt a wave of relief. My secret crush on Pei Xian ending like this might not be such a bad thing after all. I snatched the letter from his hands, tore it into even smaller pieces, then opened the window behind me and casually tossed them outside, the shredded paper scattered with the wind, never to be pieced back together. Pei Xian's expression changed as he hurried to the window, gripping the frame with both hands. Leaning halfway out the window, he gritted his teeth and said, Jianghe, you, Pei Xian, from the moment I threw away that love letter, you should have known I no longer liked you. From now on, don't come looking for me unless it's something important. Like you said, we all have college entrance exams to prepare for, don't we? 18. The next day, as soon as I entered the classroom, I could feel all my classmates looking at me. It was normal. Without blushing or panicking, I sat at my desk, opened my book, and started reading. But it's already morning self-study time. Why hasn't Lin Zhou arrived yet? I tapped my deskmate's hand and asked her, where's Lin Zhou? My deskmate gave me a teasing look. You still don't know? Because of your outburst yesterday, Fu Xing got caught by the school as a typical bullying case. He has to make a public self-criticism during morning self-study today. As for Lin Zhou, probably related to this too, he's with the teachers now. As we were talking, the classroom loudspeaker suddenly crackled to life. The voice of the dean. This time, a very serious bullying incident occurred in the school, which has had a very negative impact. It is necessary for the leading students to make a profound self-criticism. Fu Xing and his gang looked as withered as eggplants hit by frost. Completely devoid of their usual domineering air, they apologized one by one in muffled voices. The listening classmates in the room lowered their heads and chuckled. I couldn't hold back either and laughed out loud along with them. The dean asked Lin Zhou whether he accepted these people's apologies. Lin Zhou said softly, "Actually, I've never paid any attention to them. People who are completely out of your league. No matter how arrogant or lively they act, what does it matter?" I couldn't help but want to applaud him under the desk, but the next second, he directly brought me up. "Jiang He, I always felt that the confession should come from me. I like you." I was stunned. My deskmates spat out their water. They widened their eyes at me. "Wow, you too, flaunting your love in front of the whole school." The consequence was that both Lin Zhou and I had to write self-criticism reports. But now we can hold hands openly on campus. Although puppy love might seem detrimental to studies, my partner is the top student in our grade. How could I not make good use of such a huge buff? The challenging science problems seemed to come alive with Lin Zhou's company and explanations. The entire second semester of senior year suddenly didn't seem so unbearable anymore. Time flew by quickly. As for Pei Xian, it suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't really noticed him in a long time. He no longer stayed behind for self-study on Friday afternoons. Even when encountering me and Lin Zhou on campus, they would lower their eyes and quickly walk past. It seemed he was truly putting into practice those few words I had said, never bothering me again. 19. When the college entrance exam results came out, I was at an internet cafe, pulling Lin Zhou along to teach him how to clear minion waves. The class group chat suddenly exploded with activity. Someone sent a message, "Help. The college entrance exam results are out." Lin Zhou and I immediately abandoned our humanity, logged off to betray our teammates, and grabbed our phones to enter the exam admission numbers. My results came out quickly. It was 30 to 40 points higher than my usual performance, an extraordinary overachievement. I shouted excitedly, then turned my head to look at Lin Zhou's phone screen. There was a bit of a problem on his end, and it seemed quite serious. The page query displayed 0 points. My hands were trembling as I whispered to him, "How is this possible? Did you forget to write your name or mark the wrong exam number?" Lin Zhou shook his head. His fingers slowly moved toward a line of small text at the bottom of the screen. "Your ranking has placed you within the top 50 in the province. Please check for specific details in the coming days." I hugged Lin Zhou while screaming "Ah." The guy playing games nearby took off his headphones and gave us a puzzled look. "How many did you kill to get this excited?" My face turned red, and I lowered my voice. "Lin, which school are you applying to?" Lin Zhou smiled and ruffled my hair. "Let's discuss and decide together, later." The prestigious university in the south offered Lin Zhou a full scholarship and allowed him to choose any major freely. I, on the other hand, was admitted to the neighboring normal school. Everything seemed to be falling into place as planned. Everyone except Pei Xian, 20. A few days before the college application deadline, I suddenly received a call from Pei Xian's father. "Jiang He, could you do me a favor and persuade Pei Xian to stick to the original plan and apply to University A?" University A was the target school that had initially offered Pei Xian a reduced admission score. Only then did I realize that Pei Xian underperformed in the exam, scoring less than ideal, and didn't meet the admission criteria for the business programs at the nation's top universities. But if we add the 60 bonus points from University A, he could still go there as originally planned. To be honest, I don't quite understand why Pei's father called me about this. Firstly, in this situation, why would Pei Xian hesitate when University A is one of the nation's top institutions? I simply can't comprehend it. Secondly, as an outsider, what could I possibly say to persuade him? But after all, Mr. Pei is an elder, so it was hard for me to refuse his request. So after hanging up, I dialed Pei Xian's number. It rang for a long time before someone answered. After hesitating for a moment, I asked, "Pei Xian, haven't you decided which university to apply to yet?" Pei Xian's voice sounded weary. "No." For a brief moment, I felt an inexplicable frustration. "Have you lost your mind?" "Class President Pei, what are you thinking? If not a university, where else would you go? With your caliber, settling for an ordinary key university would be such a waste, don't you think?" I'm not sure if my words were too harsh, but for a moment, Pei Xian didn't answer me. After a long silence, he finally said slowly, "Jiang He, I'm afraid if we're too far apart, you'll forget me." "Jiang He, I want to go to the same city as you for college." So, this is really what he thought. "But Pei Xian, there's no need. Really no need anymore," I said in a cold tone. "Pei Xian, if you do this, I'll look down on you. Do you want us to not even be able to remain ordinary friends?" Pei Xian went to University A. He Shermang passed the cultural courses smoothly and was admitted to a dance academy in the same northern city. 21. Lin Zhou and I were admitted to universities in the south. Everything ended perfectly, no car accidents, no injuries, and no subsequent fire. The relationship between our three families remains excellent. We've been attending consecutive college celebration banquets for several days, and the parents even suggested seeing us off to the airport together as we fly off to study. In the departure hall, Lin Zhou and I were on the same flight, while Pei Xian and He Shermang were on another, one heading south, the other north. Finally, we said our goodbyes at the boarding gate. I held on to Lin Zhou's arm and handed him a backpack. He Shermang also wanted to touch Pei Xian's hand, but he subtly moved aside. Maintaining a cold and distant demeanor, he looked at me, opened his mouth, but ultimately said nothing. I waved at them. Goodbye, perhaps we won't meet again for a very, very long time. Side story, Pei Xian, the autopsy report is out. The cause of death was chemical asphyxiation. 1. The deceased inhaled excessive amounts of carbon monoxide, smoke, and toxic gases before death. The entire process was extremely agonizing. Enough, enough, stop with this useless talk. He Jiqiang waved his hand dismissively, cutting off the officer's explanation impatiently. The person's already dead. This is just an ordinary accident. Just figure out how to close the case. Was it really just an accident? He Shermang curled up in her father's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Dad, you scared me to death, scared me to death. He Jiqiang, this small-time hoodlum who collected protection money in his teens, grew his operations bigger and stronger, becoming a business boss with connections in both legal and illegal circles, completely unconcerned about such a trivial case, even though the deceased was his daughter's childhood best friend. Of course, I'm no saint either. I sat in the police station without saying a word. In fact, even if He Jiqiang hadn't come today, the police would have had a hard time convicting me and He Shermang. There were no surveillance cameras in that suburban villa of mine. So apart from me and He Shermang, no one else actually saw us locking Jiang He in the basement. You can even kill without punishment. Pei Xian, I looked at my hands and suddenly felt a wave of nauseating dizziness, as if those hands were stained with blood. Who is he? I asked, pointing at the person in the photo. 2. The two bodies retrieved by the rescue team were placed on the beach, even though the seawater had distorted their features beyond recognition. The man's arms still tightly held Jiang He in an embrace. I felt an indescribable heaviness in my chest. The officer flipped through his notes. Lin Zhou, an associate professor at a prestigious university in this city. Ah, what a pity. This must be a lover's suicide. What nonsense about dying for love. I grew increasingly irritated and angrily cut off the young policeman's words. With that, I left the police station without looking back. As I reached the parking lot and opened my car door, He Shermang caught up from behind. Brother Pei, she tugged at my sleeve, her eyes still red. Can I stay at your place for a few days? I'm scared. I flung her away with one hand, found her behavior utterly repulsive. He Shermang, why didn't we think Jiang He would be scared when we locked her in the basement? He Shermang stood frozen in place after I pushed her away. I drove aimlessly through the city at night. Eventually, I arrived in front of Jiang He's childhood home. In recent years, the Jiang family's business hasn't been doing well. Jiang He's father passed away unexpectedly during her college years, and her mother, overwhelmed by stress and grief, had a relapse of her old illness and soon went abroad for recuperation. The other relatives of the Jiang family were no good people either, taking advantage of the situation to seize control of the board. They even snatched away the shares that Jiang He held, at that time, in order to pay for her mother's medical treatment. She had no choice but to sell the villa she had lived in for many years. As if by some strange twist of fate, I ended up buying it. Now, this villa is looked after by Uncle Zhang. He's already been released from prison, and with age, his hair has turned gray, no longer carrying that somewhat domineering demeanor from 10 years ago. Who is it, Mr. Pei? What brings you here? Uncle Zhang opened the door, showing a surprised expression upon seeing me. 3. I gave a soft Unsure how to answer his question, Uncle Zhang took the coat from my hands, hung it on the wall, and followed behind me. Where's Xiaohe? Didn't she come back? I paused mid-step. Uncle Zhang, she's not coming back. This was the first time I'd stayed here since buying this villa. I went upstairs to the second floor and entered Jiang He's bedroom. In high school, Jiang He, He Shermang, and I were very close. During holidays and festivals, the three of us often visited each other's homes to hang out. Later, He Shermang went abroad, Jiang He and I went to university in the north. She doesn't come back here very often either. The bedroom looks almost exactly the same as it did in high school, blue sheets and bedding, with Winnie the Pooh printed on the curtains, rows of books on the shelves, apart from thick dictionaries and various workbooks. The majority are mystery detective novels. As I watched all this, I suddenly realized that I had never truly known much about Jiang He. I don't know her favorite color, what cartoons she likes, or what books she enjoys reading. I even know that He Shermang likes the color pink, yet I've been stingy in learning about Jiang He, as if simply because she was always by my side. Whenever I turned around, I could always see her. What a despicable and cowardly thought. I sat at Jiang He's desk, there was a small drawer beneath the desk, which I casually opened. There were some notebooks and documents inside. A high school graduation photo was tucked inside, which I gently took out. Jiang He and I stood together in the middle row. Back then, we both looked youthful and naive, with Jiang He squinting and smiling faintly in the sunlight. I moved my finger beside Jiang He's face and slowly caressed it. Suddenly I realized, there will never be a time as wonderful as being 17, at that moment. A breeze blew, and a letter slipped out from the drawer. The letter was folded into thirds, with 3 words written at the top, to Pei Xian, for me. A string in my memory seemed to have been plucked. I unfolded the letter paper. It's the love letter Jiang He gave me during her senior year of high school. Pei Xian, you don't know this, but actually, I've liked you for a long time. I know my grades are average, but I'll work hard to get into the same university as you. Next time I ask you for help with a problem, could you please not get annoyed with me? Do you, like me? Looking at these lines of words, I suddenly feel so sad. Back then, how did I answer her? I said, Jiang He, I don't want to be in a relationship right now. Senior year classes were intense. I didn't want distractions, but more importantly, I always felt that Jiang He would never, ever leave me, so I could take her for granted without cherishing her. The mere thought of it. To think it was my own arrogance and pride that pushed Jiang He into hell. I personally killed the person who meant the most to me. Regret and guilt feel like invisible hands tightly gripping my heart, making it hard to breathe. I crouched down in sorrow. The love letter was clutched tightly in my hand. Jiang He, I'm the one who wronged you. I owe you my life. That night, I slept in Jiang He's bed. It's strange. Jiang He hasn't been back for years, but I always feel like her presence still lingers here. During this period, I've been staying at the Jiang family's villa. Uncle Jean noticed I seemed inclined to stay long-term and wanted to prepare the master bedroom for me. I told him not to bother. I could stay in Jiang He's room. He looked at me, shook his head, and said nothing. During the day, I drove to the company for work and meetings, and by 8 or 9 in the evening, I returned to the Jiang family villa. After returning, I often sat on Jiang He's bed, reading the books she left behind. Occasionally, I would see Jiang He standing beside me, pointing at a line in the book and saying, Pei Xian, do you know who the murderer is? I won't tell you. When I looked up again, she had already disappeared. I knew I was hallucinating. I didn't go to the hospital to consult a doctor. If getting sick means I can see Jiang He, that's actually not so bad. He Jiqiang suddenly asked me out for dinner at his private club. He Shermang was there too. He lit a cigar, tossed a real estate joint development agreement in front of me, and said with a smile, Pei Xian, among the younger generation, you're the one I have the highest hopes for. What do you say? Interested in working together on that plot in the western suburbs? The western suburbs, a place resembling slums, dirty, chaotic, and poor. The government has long wanted to buy the land for large-scale development, but the relocation compensation couldn't be agreed upon. The original residents refused to move, and the matter was shelved. Now that He Jiqiang has obtained this development agreement, he must have employed numerous underhanded tactics behind the scenes. His background is shady to begin with. To make these people move out, he probably resorted to bribery, threats, gangster methods, every trick in the book. I took out this agreement and casually flipped through it. I replied, sure. He Jiqiang laughed even louder. People say double happiness comes together. Our business is thriving now, and it's time to consider family matters. You and Shermang grew up together, but both of you are too shy. It's up to me, the old man, to play matchmaker. He Shermang threw herself into her father's arms, pounding on He Jiqiang's chest. Dad, what are you talking about? What am I talking about? You have a crush on Pei Xian and you're too shy to admit it. He Jiqiang ruffled He Shermang's hair, then turned to me and said, Pei Xian, pick a date and invite your father out. Our two families should discuss the engagement arrangements. From beginning to end, I didn't say a single word. In business circles, such well-matched arranged marriages are all too common. In their eyes, He Shermang and I grew up together since childhood. With such a close relationship, isn't that far better than those emotionless arranged marriages of other families? I drove home in a daze, opened the door and lay down on the bed. In my confused state, I seemed to see Jiang He again. She sat by the bed, gently touched my eyebrows, and said with a smile, "Ah, Pei Xian, you're getting married. I must congratulate you properly. How much should I contribute for the wedding gift?" Afraid she might disappear, I quickly grabbed her wrist. "No, Jiang He. I won't marry her." "Really?" Jiang He looked confused. "Isn't Shermang your white moonlight? To make her happy, wouldn't you disregard my life?" Pei Xian, the fire was so terrifying, it burned me so painfully. I abruptly sat up from the bed, a cold sweat broke out all over my body. Jiang He had already disappeared, rubbing my temples. My head was pounding terribly. Is this retribution? I thought with a bitter laugh. The media quickly made headlines with the news of our joint development of the western suburbs land with the He family. 7. As for my engagement to He Shermang, gossip tabloids have started buzzing with rumors. Business alliance marriage, the Pei family's heir and the He family's heiress, a love story between Tremble heirs and childhood sweethearts. When I saw this type of question, I almost couldn't hold back and burst out laughing in the office. This probably came from He Jiqiang's own PR team. It's so damn annoying. He Shermang now frequently comes to the company to look for me. I want the assistant to use the excuse of having too much development project work and being unable to spare time, to stop her at the office door. She then threw a tantrum like a spoiled rich girl. "I'm going to call my dad and have him send more people to help you, then you'll have time to go on a date with me." It was actually thanks to He Shermang's unreasonable pestering. He Jiqiang really transferred many of their company's key business talents and elites over. Some of them were even old confidants who had followed him for decades. They brought materials from the He's development project, several terabytes of hard drive files, and asked me which ones might be useful. Among these were tax evasion, bribery, forced demolitions, violence, all sorts of illegal methods. He Jiqiang now considers us to be in the same boat, so he's completely let his guard down. He always calls me son-in-law when we meet. I smiled and said, "It's useful. Many things are useful." 2 months later, the Pei and He families jointly held a press conference about land development in a downtown office building. 8. Both He Jiqiang and I attended. According to He Jiqiang's vision, after announcing the development plan for the western suburbs land, he also wanted to take this opportunity to announce the news of my marriage to He Shermang, before going on stage. He patted me on the shoulder, adjusting his tie. His face was full of a smug smile. "Son-in-law, I specially had someone check today's almanac. It's an auspicious day, perfect for important events." I stared at him without speaking. After the host announced the start of the press conference, everything proceeded according to the planned steps, until a tabloid reporter in the audience, not understanding the procedure, assumed the development plan had been explained sufficiently, raising a hand to ask, "Mr. Pei, Mr. He, may I ask first, is the marriage alliance between the two families real, and would it be possible to reveal the date of the engagement banquet?" He Jiqiang was interrupted mid-sentence, his facial expression clearly displeased, but since the reporter was asking about happy news, he patiently replied, "The marriage alliance is indeed true. Pei Xian and my daughter He Shermang have known each other since childhood sweethearts who fell in love freely. As for the timing, we will inform you when the time comes. I never agreed to any marriage arrangement." I took a sip of water, picked up the microphone, and stated bluntly. These words dropped like a bomb at the press conference, instantly unsettling the reporters present. What, a last-minute change? What on earth is going on? This is huge news. He Jiqiang was momentarily stunned, frozen in place. I stood up, holding the remote control, and projected all of He Jiqiang's criminal evidence from recent years onto the display screen. Tax evasion, violent crimes. How could our Pei group possibly be associated with such mafia-like enterprises? He Jiqiang suddenly stood up and poured the tea from his cup over my head. "Pei Xian, you're fucking crazy." I wiped the stains off my face and smiled. "I am crazy, for criminal enterprises like this. I hope our country's regulatory agencies will crack down hard and investigate thoroughly, leaving no stone unturned." He Shermang was sitting in the audience, a spotlight from some media outlet shone directly on her. With tear-streaked face, she covered her eyes and ran out. The next day, reports about the He family's alleged underworld connections were everywhere. 9. How he built his fortune and reached this point. Soon, the police arrived and took He Ji-cheong away. In the photo, his hands were cuffed, his eyes filled with resentment and unwillingness. As the saying goes, when the wall starts to collapse, everyone pushes it. The downfall and bankruptcy of the He family were almost inevitable. He Shermang once came looking for me, but was stopped by security. She shouted at me from afar, asking, "Pei Xian, give me a reason, tell me why, have I ever wronged you?" I glanced at her, then looked at my own hand. He Shermang, we deserve to go to hell. She shook her head, as if not understanding what I was saying. Later, it was heard that the original residents of the western suburbs, who had been violently driven away by He Ji-cheong, came to seek justice after the He family went bankrupt. Many of them rushed into the He family's villa and took away their valuables. He Shermang and her mother hid in a corner, trembling with fear. The conflict escalated violently, and someone set a fire, causing the entire villa to burn from top to bottom. The He family's servants had all fled, and no one cared about these two fallen bosses. In the end, it was He Shermang's mother who dragged her out of the villa, crawling to safety, although both of them survived. However, He Shermang was at the fire scene and inhaled excessive amounts of high-temperature gases and thick smoke, resulting in severe brain damage and causing a state of unclear consciousness. Perhaps she will recover soon. Or perhaps she may never be able to leave the ventilator and become a vegetative state for life. During the period when the He family declined, my father kept calling me. 10. Pei Xian, you've grown wings now, haven't you? I can't control you anymore. Do you realize what you're doing? Do you understand how many joint projects the He family has with ours, and the economic losses you've caused? Wasn't Shermang your childhood friend? How heartless can you be? I answered the first few calls, but got so annoyed later that I stopped paying attention. I often drive alone at night, aimlessly cruising on the highway. Sometimes, it feels like Jiang He is sitting in the passenger seat beside me. She's very well behaved, even fastening her seatbelt properly. Pei Xian, she softly calls my name. Didn't you like He Shermang? I don't like her. Oh, she drew out the syllable, suddenly glaring at me. Then who do you like? Don't tell me you like me. I smiled, just about to answer her. Jiang He shook her head again. No, you couldn't possibly like me. If you liked me, how could you have abandoned me alone in a place like that? Yes, I remember again the raging fire in the basement. A maddening regret began to consume